Chapter 569. Countless bolts of lightning formed in midair, and the lightning fell like raindrops. This was the activation of all the restrictions. As long as one was within the range of the killing formation, no one could escape. They were all struck by the violent bolts of lightning. Howls of grief rang out. How could the outsiders have imagined that there would be such a powerful killing formation here? Large amounts of people fell down, blasted into ashes by the lightning. Black smoke rose up, and the cultivators could smell the fragrance of meat. All the cultivators stared at the restriction circle, dumbfounded. They vaguely saw the outsiders running around like headless flies. They did not run far before they were struck by the lightning bolts and fell to the ground. Lei Xingfeng asked, "How many outsiders have entered?" Wu Yang said, "I can't see clearly. My eyes are going blind." The entire earth was shaking, and countless outsiders were crying and struggling in the killing array. Lei Xingfeng's eyes flickered with silver light. He said, "Unfortunately, there are at least 3,000 to 4,000 outsiders who have not entered. We should have resisted for a while." "What a pity," Wu Yang said. "It's already not bad. So many people have fallen into the killing formation. At least half of them are dead." Dalieba muttered to himself, "So powerful, so terrifying." Lei Xingfeng saw some red-armored Dao Lord Patriarchs retreating pathetically. Some Dao Lord Patriarchs seemed to have gone too deep and had no choice but to charge forward. They were about to charge out of the killing formation. This direction was filled with cultivators. He shouted, "Follow me." 10 Dao Lord Patriarchs followed Lei Xingfeng. Then they saw an outsider charge out of the killing formation. Lei Xingfeng shouted, "Surround and kill him. Quick!" So many Dao Lord Patriarchs were attacking a single outsider with all their might. The outsider, Dao Lord Patriarch, was still in a state of shock and was instantly annihilated. Just like this, the battle continued. In any case, as long as an outsider charged out, the 10 or so high-level cultivators would immediately launch a frenzied attack. In just 10 minutes, more than 10 outsider Dao Lord Patriarchs had been slain. The outsider side had suffered tremendous losses as a result. Wu Yang and the others panted as they stared at the edge of the killing formation. Lei Xingfeng said, "All right, there's no more." Others could not see the killing formation clearly, but he could. He could no longer find the red-armored outsider. The outsiders looked at the killing formation not far away in terror. Thunder rumbled and rumbled, causing the ground to tremble. This kind of power was unimaginable to them. A few of the stronger outsiders struggled to retreat, but the others couldn't escape at all. They were all trapped in the killing formation. After a while, there was no other sound from the killing formation besides the thunder and lightning. Xian Feng closed the killing array, and the thunder and lightning immediately stopped. The rising black smoke gradually disappeared, revealing the scene on the ground. Whether it was the cultivators or the outsiders, all of them had their mouths wide open as they looked at the white ground of the killing matrix. There were pits of various sizes everywhere, and nothing could be seen on the ground. Whether it was the rocks or the outsiders, everything had disappeared. Other than the pits of various sizes, there was only a thick layer of white dust on the ground. The cultivators and the outsiders stared at each other across the killing array. One side only had a few hundred people, while the other side had more than 4,000. The two sides were completely disproportionate. However, there was only terror and dread in the eyes of the outsiders. Even their Dao Lord Patriarch's eyes were filled with shock. No one spoke. There was an eerie silence outside the mountain pass. Both sides were silent as they stood there quietly. After a while, the cultivators suddenly burst into cheers. Every single cultivator knew that their lives had been saved, and they were all filled with gratitude towards Xian Feng. If it wasn't for the fact that they had such a treasure in their group, everyone knew that other than a few Dao monarch elders, none of them would have survived this battle. After a while, the group of outsiders turned around silently and walked towards the forest in the canyon. They walked very slowly, and soon, the cheers of the cultivators died down. The cultivators also fell silent as they watched the group of outsiders silently retreat into the forest, gradually disappearing from their sight. Lei Xingfeng said, "They probably won't come again unless they use their lives to fill this killing formation. I think they won't." Wu Yang said, "Of course, they can go and guard the canyon. They don't need to attack the mountain pass." Dalai Ba said, "This time, our mission can be considered completed." Instantly, everyone cheered again. This was equivalent to saving their lives. Although they didn't know how long they could live, they were still alive, weren't they? This battle lasted for less than half an hour. Both sides suffered losses, but the outsiders suffered heavier losses. At least 7,000 to 8,000 outsiders died in the mouth of the horn of the mountain pass. If the cultivators were to be counted according to the ratio, the number of cultivators who died was not small either. There were close to 200 of them, and a portion of them were injured. This time, even the Tao Lord Patriarchs were injured. One must know that when the Tao Lord Patriarchs fought with their lives on the line, even a dozen of them would have to pay a price. Lei Xingfeng was not stingy. This time, he took out many medicines for free and gave them to the injured cultivators. He knew that without these medicines, they might not have been able to hold on even with the restrictions. It was also because of this that Lei Xingfeng's prestige in this team was even higher than Wu Yang and Dalai Ba. Everything Lei Xingfeng did was seen by the cultivators. They knew that as long as the Ming-Zhe alliance understood this battle, Lei Xingfeng would definitely be the focus of attention. Wu Yang said, "Everyone go back and rest." He sent a few uninjured heavenly monarchs to scout the situation and see if the outsiders had really retreated. Dalai Ba also sent people to the camp to scout the situation. They also wanted to know how the Ming-Zhe alliance dealt with the rebellion. The others left one after another and returned to their own residences to rest. Lei Xingfeng stood still. Wu Yang said, "Afo, it's been hard on you. Go back and rest." Dalai Ba also said, "Yes, it's all thanks to you this time. If it wasn't for this killing formation, we would have to escape." Lei Xingfeng shook his head and said, "We still don't know how the Ming-Zhe alliance will treat us. Perhaps we still have to defend for a while. Wait a moment, I will go and check the restrictions." Lei Xingfeng had placed 4 big thunder crystals in this killing formation. In a short time, 3 big thunder crystals were used up. After replenishing the big thunder crystals, Lei Xingfeng sighed and said, "If 1 or 2,000 people rushed in at once, I really don't know if I should activate it or not. Once the big thunder crystals are used up, we will be facing a massacre." Lei Xingfeng turned and prepared to leave. However, he still wanted to check if the nodes of the restriction were damaged. Silver light flickered in his eyes. Suddenly, his eyes widened. Wu Yang noticed that Lei Xingfeng's expression was a little strange. He asked, "What's wrong?" Lei Xingfeng didn't say anything. He stretched out his hand and grabbed the air. A huge illusory hand suddenly flew out and grabbed a handful of white ashes from the ground. With a strong pinch, smoke and dust flew everywhere. Wu Yang was even more confused. He asked, "What's wrong? Why are you grabbing the mud?" Lei Xingfeng withdrew his hand. In his palm, there was a lump of light golden metal. However, it was all gravel and shone with a metallic luster. Lei Xingfeng said, "Look, what is this?" Wu Yang curiously picked up a grain of light golden metal and carefully examined it. After a while, he shook his head and said, "I don't know what this is." Lei Xingfeng said, "I don't know either. However, I know that this thing is definitely a treasure." Just now, with just a glance, he saw specks of golden light on the ground. The light was very dazzling. With his experience of finding so many treasures, he knew that the brighter the light, the more precious the material was. After countless experiments, he had never failed. Wu Yang said, "Is it something good?" Lei Xingfeng nodded vigorously and said, "It's definitely something good. It's just that I don't know what to use it for. Let's collect it first." The two were busy collecting. After more than 2 hours, they finally collected a part of it. There were still some that were too scattered. It was only then that Wu Yang came to his senses and said, "Oh right, is this left behind by the outsiders?" Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "Yes, it should be the remnants accumulated in their bodies." Wu Yang repeatedly said that he was unlucky. However, he didn't hesitate to collect the metal grains. The two returned to their residence at the mountain pass. Lei Xingfeng said, I'm going out for a while. I'll be back soon. Wu Yang said, Okay, I'm going to check out the situation. I'll be back in a while. Lei Xingfeng got up and flew out of the mountain pass. After flying for a few minutes, he arrived at the forbidden killing formation that was set up earlier. Silver light flickered in his eyes. Instantly, he found something good and began to collect it with a smile. Soon, Lei Xingfeng discovered a secret. He found some red beads that were the size of marbles. Although they weren't perfectly round, they were very cute. Moreover, the light they emitted was especially strong. After thinking carefully, he realized that this was the place where the Tao Lord ancestor of the outsiders died. In total, he found a few hundred of these red beads. Lei Xingfeng kept them all in his hidden Lun space and carefully stored them away. After checking carefully to make sure that he didn't miss anything, Lei Xingfeng flew back to the mountain pass. When he returned to his residence, he saw Wu Yang, Dalai Ba, Ning Aba, and a Tao Lord ancestor. Lei Xingfeng knew this person too. He was close to them. His name was Qiling. He had an extremely long beard, so everyone called him Qiling Changhu. He was quite strong. Lei Xingfeng greeted him and sat down. He said, Is there any news? Qiling Changhu said, Yes, there is news. However, it's a bit messy. Huh? Lei Xingfeng said, Too much news? Qiling Changhu said, Yes, there's too much news. It's a mess. There are a few main points. He looked at Wu Yang and the others and said, The main point is that the Mingzhe alliance didn't choose to use force. They chose to negotiate. I heard that the leader of the Mingzhe alliance in charge of this war was replaced by a new person. Lei Xingfeng nodded. This was also a way to calm the anger. Both sides had their concerns. This was the most appropriate way. Qiling Changhu said, I heard that most people will be pardoned. Only a few leaders will be punished. The rebel army hasn't agreed yet. However, I heard that the rebel army is divided internally. One side wants to settle the matter peacefully, while the other wants to leave. Lei Xingfeng said, Oh, what happened in the end? Qiling Changhu smiled bitterly. There's no progress yet. However, I heard that the Mingzhe alliance sent experts over. They even recruited a group of Mingzhe alliance experts. Chapter 570. Lei Xingfeng could not help but shake his head. Impressive. On one hand, they are negotiating and messing with the other party's minds. On the other hand, they're mobilizing troops to suppress them. Those rebels are in trouble. Dalai Lama said, It's not just trouble. If things go wrong, many people will die. No matter what, the Mingzhe alliance has the upper hand. Even if they agree to settle things peacefully, the higher-ups will be punished. Those who are not punished will still have to listen to orders and fight against the outsiders. At that time, they will still be exhausted. Lei Xingfeng rubbed his chin and thought for a while. He said, No, there will be some changes. After all, the Mingzhe alliance has forced so many people to rebel. It's time for them to reflect. Then they will definitely throw out some bait. For example, they will make a contribution. For example, they will set up a role model and let them gain benefits. This way, the use of role models will be endless. Dalai Lama said, But what use will it be to us? Lei Xingfeng could not help but laugh. He said, We are a role model. Of course, it will depend on whether the Mingzhe alliance will use it. If they don't, it will be useless. If they do, we can escape from the abyss of suffering. Wu Yang, Dalai Lama, Ning Aba, and Qiling Changhu could not help but shake their heads. These words were too unreliable. There were so many cultivators. Why would they use them as role models? Dalai Lama said, Forget it. As long as they don't send us to our deaths, I will be satisfied. Lei Xingfeng said, This kind of clumsy method will not happen. The backlash is too great. If the Mingzhe alliance is not so stupid, they will definitely change this method. Ning Aba said, Change? What else can they change? Their goal will not change. Lei Xingfeng laughed. Of course their goal will not change. They will use this batch of cannon fodder to take over an outsider's continent. They will also use a large number of people to gain more resources. This is killing 2 birds with 1 stone. No, it's killing 3 birds with 1 stone. Why should they change? They will only change the method, not the goal. Wu Yang cannot help but sigh. How evil, Ling Changhu said. This is necessary for the Ming-Zhe alliance. If I were the decision-maker of the Ming-Zhe alliance, I would not object to it. Lei Xingfeng could not help but shake his head. This was too cruel. Wu Yang said, we can only wait. Fortunately, we defeated the outsiders this time. This will allow us to hold on for quite a long time. Let's wait for any changes and then send someone to report back. Lei Xingfeng said, we have to report it. It's like we've been forgotten here. If we don't remind them, who knows how long we'll have to wait. Ling Changhu said, that's right. If there's nothing, send someone to report it. I believe that if we say too much, it will eventually reach the ears of the higher-ups. Lei Xingfeng thought for a while and said, it's not enough to just report it. Damn it, we have to find a way to spread this news. This time, we're the only ones who took down the mountain pass and defended it. We have to spread this news. Also, we have to secretly spread the news that after we took down the mountain pass, the Ming-Zhe alliance actually changed their orders and let us guard the mountain pass. This is a borrowed knife to kill people. Wu Yang clapped. That's a good idea. Once this news spreads, the Ming-Zhe alliance will have to take care of it. Otherwise, it will cause public anger again. Ha! Dalai Ba nodded. That's right. If we lose, we die. If we win, we die. Who the hell is still willing to listen to orders? Ling Changhu said, I'll arrange it. He stood up and left. Ninger Aba said, I'll go with you. He also left. Wu Yang said, we still have to wait for a while. A phone, do you have any ideas? Lei Xingfeng laughed. Of course I do. Don't you know that there's a huge mineral vein here? Since we are guarding here, then I'm sorry. Let's all get rich together. He had already scouted the area. There was not only one mineral vein here. There were a few smaller mineral veins gathered outside the mountain pass. He was not sure of the type, but the quality was not bad. By letting everyone dig, there would be some compensation. Dalai Ba asked curiously, how do you know there's a mineral vein here? Are you a mine seeker? Wu Yang said, what mine seeker? Dalai Ba said, mine seeker is a special position in the Ming-Zhe alliance. You have to go through a long period of learning and training before you can get this title. The position in the Ming-Zhe alliance is quite high, and you have your own guards. You can enjoy the best treatment. Normal sects cannot have such people. Wu Yang and Lei Xingfeng revealed shocked expressions. This Ming-Zhe alliance was too powerful. Anyone who had the slightest chance of strengthening their sect would be caught in their hands. Thinking about it, if it was not an open pit mine, how many cultivators would be able to find it? No matter how shallow an underground mineral vein was, if you did not know, you would not dig it up. Lei Xingfeng thought, this mine seeker is like the geologist in my previous world. I did not expect there to be such a job here. But he thought about it and understood. If there was a need, there would be a need. The appearance of a mine seeker was not strange. Lei Xingfeng said, I'm not a mine seeker. I just happened to pick up a few pieces of and found a mineral vein underground. He would not admit that he could see an underground mineral vein. This was a sign of trouble. Dalai Ba said regretfully, so that's how it is. I just don't know what kind of mine it is. Lei Xingfeng said, I'm not too sure either. We'll know once we dig it up. Dalai Ba was a Dao Lord old ancestor, but he was also a poor person. The so-called poor did not lack food and clothing, but in terms of resources. He was a poor person. In the sect, although he was a Dao Lord old ancestor, most of the resources he obtained from the sect had to be handed over. At his level, the resources he needed were provided by the Ming-Zhe alliance. They were all high-end cultivation resources. Of course, there would not be a lot of them. He had to use them sparingly. Lei Xingfeng asked curiously, how did your sect find the mineral vein? Did the Ming-Zhe alliance send a mine seeker? Dalai Ba smiled bitterly. You don't know? Of course we'll send out prospectors. If we find ordinary ore veins, we'll be the ones to excavate them. If we find high-grade ore veins, we'll have specialized personnel to excavate them. This is especially true for ores that cultivators at the Dao Lord True Virtue level and above need. We won't be able to get our hands on them. Lei Xingfeng could not help but shake his head. This kind of control was really tight. If high-level cultivators were not willing to join the Ming-Zhe alliance, it would be difficult for them to cultivate in the future. The cultivators here, other than working hard to cultivate, resources were a very important method of cultivation. It was like walking with two legs. If they lacked resources, it was equivalent to walking with only one leg. One could imagine the speed of cultivation. Wu Yang said, "We can't care that much. Since we've occupied this place, let's dig. Anyway, this is a war zone. No one will care about these things. Tell everyone to keep their mouths shut. It won't do anyone any good if word gets out." Resource control. This move was too ruthless. Fortunately, there were still loopholes. If they found an ore vein and excavated it secretly, the Mingzhe alliance would not be able to do anything about it. When the news got out, the entire camp started to move. No one cared. What a joke. If they could obtain a large amount of ores after refining them, even if they couldn't use them, they could still exchange them for things that were useful to them. Everyone knew this. Under Lei Xingfeng's lead, everyone started to dig. The ores that were excavated here belonged to whoever managed to excavate them. Wu Yang and Alai Ba arranged a digging schedule. They could not all dig here at once. Everyone had their own tasks, such as scouting and patrolling. Therefore, a schedule was necessary. They would take turns to excavate. Everyone was given about the same amount of time. Of course, if you were not as strong as others and excavated less, you wouldn't blame others. This excavation was a destructive one. The weakest cultivators of the mountain pass were true monarchs. Of course, true monarchs were much weaker than heavenly monarchs and Tao monarchs. Everyone had an illusory hand to excavate. True monarchs could not excavate as much as heavenly monarchs and Tao monarchs. When the illusory hand grabbed, countless ores would fall into the hidden lens space. Everyone was excited. Lei Xingfeng's and Wu Yang's methods were completely different. This was all thanks to Lei Xingfeng's eyes. He specifically looked for places with rich ores and then took turns to excavate with Wu Yang. What they obtained were all good things. This slightly larger vein was needed by heavenly monarchs. Tao monarchs could also use it, but the quality was not good enough. There were a few smaller veins at the side. 2 of them were for true monarchs. If heavenly monarchs wanted to use them, they would also complain about the quality not being good enough. There was a small vein that Tao monarchs could use. It was an unknown metal. Lei Xingfeng had never seen it before. According to his previous life's point of view, this metal was not on the table of elements. However, after it was excavated, all the Tao monarchs went crazy. It was immediately divided up. Of course, as the discoverer, Lei Xingfeng also received a portion. It was a purplish-black metal. There was not much of it. Lei Xingfeng received a portion after preliminary purification. It was about a few hundred jin. The entire excavation lasted for more than 10 days. It was basically empty. One had to know that these true monarchs, heavenly monarchs, and Tao monarchs all had their own abilities. Digging was too easy. Of course, there was also a lot of waste. They did not have the mood to dig slowly. They all used the illusory hand. This thing was like a large excavator. It could dig out a large lump in an instant. Even a medium-sized vein was quickly excavated by this group of people. Countless large holes were left in the ground. Lei Xingfeng suggested that everyone attack the ground together. At the very least, they could not leave any obvious traces of excavation. From the looks of it, any cultivator would know that there was a mine here and it had been excavated. With so many true monarchs, heavenly monarchs, and Tao monarchs attacking together, the ground was soon a mess. They had truly destroyed all traces. The entire scene looked like an incomparably cruel battle. Lei Xingfeng nodded in satisfaction. Watch your mouth. If you spout nonsense, you will not be able to protect your own things. You will also implicate everyone. Chapter 571. Everyone agreed and returned to the mountain pass in high spirits. Although they didn't make a fortune, no one expected that they would gain so much from the battle. Everyone had a higher opinion of Lei Xingfeng now. After dozens of days, all kinds of news came. Fortunately, there weren't many changes at the mountain pass. The outsiders seemed to have disappeared and didn't launch a second attack. They probably couldn't accept the losses from the previous attack and didn't want to risk their lives with this group of people who had forbidden killing arrays. The price was too high. The Ming-Zhe alliance seemed to have reached an agreement with the rebel army. The leaders were exiled. The so-called exile meant that they weren't allowed to return to their original sect. Of course, the Ming-Zhe alliance wouldn't take their anger out on their sections. However, the leaders of the rebel army became wild cultivators without a sect. After the Ming-Zhe alliance opened a secret door, they were sent to other continents. There were thousands of continents here. If they were sent to a remote continent, it would be extremely difficult for them to return. They didn't have the mirror realm. The rebels were split up and distributed to other teams. More than 1 million people were transferred to the other teams. After these rebels were separated, they were like water droplets entering the ocean. No one could find any trace of them. Good news came. Although they weren't treated as role models, they received a generous reward. More than 5,000 cultivators came to take over the mountain pass. It was said that they were going to attack from the mountain pass. Of course, Lei Xingfeng also put away all the defensive restrictions and killing arrays. Wu Yang and Alai Ba received many useful items. The others also received generous rewards. This was also a change after the Ming-Zhe alliance changed their general. With the arrival of a large number of cultivators, Wu Yang and the others packed up and returned to the main camp through the secret door. The mission to attack the mountain pass was finally completed. The remaining few hundred people had survived for the time being. The remaining soldiers were split up when they returned to the main camp. However, Dalai Ba, Ningyi Aba, and Qiling Changhu followed Wu Yang and Lei Xingfeng. There were also 2 Dao Lord Patriarchs. Their disciples were all dead. They felt that there was some hope of survival if they stayed with Wu Yang and the others. In this place, Dao Lords had the right to choose. They could choose any team they wanted. Because of this rule, Dalaba and the others chose to team up with Wu Yang. Lei Xingfeng knew that when so many practitioners were together, they would always form some kind of small group. After escaping with their lives this time, most of the remaining practitioners had this idea. The 2 captains were not very strong, but they handled things very well. It was definitely everyone's fortune to have a good captain. If possible, they would still like to be with such a captain. Qiling Changhu was one such representative. He tested Wu Yang and Dalai Ba and got a good result, so he joined their team. Soon, other Dao Lord Patriarchs, Heavenly Lords, and true immortals requested to stay in the team. These people had survived 2 battles and completed the mission. They were recognized by the Ming-Zhe alliance, which proved that these people's abilities were not bad. Therefore, a large number of cultivators quickly came to replace them. The original cultivators who stayed became the backbone of the Ming-Zhe alliance. To make up for the numbers, the 2 captains each had 1,000 practitioners. Among the new practitioners, there were only a few Dao Lords and Heavenly Lords. There were about 100 true immortals, and the rest were Taoist masters. After 2 battles, Lei Xingfeng understood that Taoist masters were really cannon fodder. Their ability to protect themselves was not enough. Once a large-scale battle broke out, most of the casualties would be Taoist masters. The number of true immortals dying would be much lower. As for Dao Lords and Heavenly Lords, as long as they were careful and smart, they would be injured more often than killed. Of course, when it came to a large-scale battle, whether it was true immortals, Heavenly Lords, or super strong Dao Lords, they were not safe. In a large-scale battle, they would often be surrounded and killed for unknown reasons. This was especially so when there were many high-level combatants. In a decisive battle, not many could survive. After resting in the camp for about 10 days, a new mission was issued. Lei Xingfeng was now the strategist. His status was very special. In Wu Yang and Dalai Ba's teams, the Heavenly Lords and Dao Lords all trusted him. Although he was only a Heavenly Lord, his status was similar to that of a Dao Lord Patriarch. Wu Yang, Dalai Ba, Lei Xingfeng, Qiling Changhu, and the others gathered in a wooden house. Dalai Ba said, "A new mission." A Dao Lord Patriarch asked, "What mission is it this time?" Dalai Ba said, "It's still that mining area." Now, the team has already entered. They fought their way in through the mountain pass that we occupied. They worked together and took down a few more mountain passes. Therefore, our mission this time is to enter the mining area and eliminate the remaining outsiders. Nang Yaba said, this mission is very easy. Wu Yang said, they're taking care of us. Because we have completed 2 missions, both of which were very difficult, they gave us a slightly easier mission this time. As long as they were careful, the elimination mission would not be too difficult. Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, not bad, not bad. This is a mining area. Everyone understood and could not help but smile. If they did this well, they could enrich their wallets greatly. No cultivator would complain about having too many resources. With Lei Xingfeng leading them, they could probably obtain many good things. Deliaba said, I heard that this mining area is very rich in minerals. Many of them are good things that only Dao Lord Patriarchs and above need. He rubbed his palms together and said, everyone's eyes shone with a golden light. They were all thinking about how to get rich. Lei Xingfeng reminded, even if we're going to dig, we have to be careful. Also, the area must be small. It should be limited to us old people. As for the newcomers, let's not let them join for now. It will be too easy for news to leak. Although the Ming-Zhe Alliance did not explicitly state that they were not allowed to embezzle resources, large-scale embezzlement would definitely be stopped and punished. Everyone was very clear about this. Wealth moved people's hearts. Lei Xingfeng thought, this is the same whether it is the previous life or the current life. The previous life was about wealth. This life is about resources. Qiling Changhu said, when do we depart? Daliaba said, in 3 days. First, we will replenish our supplies. Everyone will have 30 days' worth of supplies. After that, we will depart together with the rest of the team. Cultivators' supplies were mostly given to individuals. Because of the hidden Luan space, whether it was food or clothes, they were all given in one go. After a mission, they would rest and reorganize. Then, they would be given out for the next mission. Wu Yang and Daliaba's team entered the mountain pass. This mountain pass was not originally occupied by them. They had fought their way in. As they passed by the mountain pass, they could see that the trees on the ground were all destroyed. There were many traces of attacks on the Bear Mountain Pass. This batch of people who entered the mountain pass was huge. It was said that there were more than 80,000 people. Each of them had their own mission. When a mission was given, Wu Yang and Daliaba knew that it was not easy, because, other than clearing the ground, they also had to enter the mines to clear. The underground mine was hundreds or even thousands of meters deep, and it was very easy to get lost in it. Someone had to constantly record and mark the paths of the mine. This was also one of the tasks. They were assigned 2 large mines. The upper layer was basically hollowed out, and the middle and lower layers were the mining surface and mining surface. Lei Xingfeng noticed that most of the people in the team were male. There were very few females. It was so rare that he could not even see one. He asked curiously, why are there so few female cultivators? Daliaba revealed a wretched smile and said, of course there are fewer. Their mission is to breed the next generation. Letting them cultivate is a waste of resources. Lei Xingfeng was stunned. He said, but there are still female cultivators. Daliaba said, of course, some attributes are very suitable for female cultivators. Most of them stayed in the Ming-Zhe Alliance. They are not suited for battle. Lei Xingfeng knew that the status of females here was even lower than those in the hidden sect. He said, I see. After passing through the mountain pass, there were endless mountains. This area should have been cleared. Along the way, they could see traces of battle. It was obvious that the battle was very intense. Lei Xingfeng said emotionally, who knows how many people died after attacking this place. Daliaba said, what's so strange about that? The number of deaths in this invasion of a continent is definitely in the hundreds of thousands or even millions. However, the rewards are also great. How many resources are there in an entire continent? Qiling Changhu said, don't be fooled by the fact that there are many continents in outer space. Continents that are rich in resources are very rare. Most of the continents are barren or have exhausted their resources. This is one of the important reasons for the war. Lei Xingfeng could not help but feel emotional. He could not imagine such a huge force like the Ming-Zhe Alliance. He said, The stronger they are, the stronger they are. Dalieba agreed. If you have the strength, you can conquer continents. The more continents you conquer, the stronger you become. This is a process of growth. However, we are pitiful. We don't get many benefits, but we have to pay with our lives. Lei Xingfeng said, not necessarily. It depends on what we do. If we foolishly fight with our lives on the line, we will die quickly. This point was agreed by the surrounding Dao lords. After walking for about 2 days, the group entered a huge basin. The area in the middle of the basin was very large. There were many buildings, but most of them were destroyed. There were traces of battle, but the corpses on the ground had been cleaned up. The streets were also cleaned. Wu Yang and Dalieba received orders. Their mission was to clean up 2 large mines. Chapter 572. The 2 large mines were covered by buildings on the ground. However, after the battle, the buildings were severely damaged, but did not prevent them from reaching the mine entrance. For now, he didn't know what kind of ores they were, but Xi and Feng found a clue. There were some ores left on the ground, and from the intense light emitted from them, he knew that these 2 ores weren't normal. Dalieba stood at the entrance of the mine and asked, "What should we do?" He was confused and did not know where to start. Wu Yang pondered for a moment and said, "We have too few people. Even if we set up camp at every step, it will be difficult to clear them all. Moreover, we do not know anything about the tunnels below." The Dao Lord Patriarchs gathered together to discuss, while the others arranged for a place to set up camp. Although more than half of the buildings here had been destroyed, there were still quite a few that were intact. There were still some outsiders in the buildings on the ground, but they were immediately killed the moment they were discovered. They no longer had the strength to resist. The entire basin was filled with cultivators. A Dao Lord Patriarch volunteered. "I will go down and take a look. Who wants to go with me?" Dalieba said, "I will go." Lei Xingfeng said, "A few more will go. I will go too." He wanted to see the situation first. He believed that there should not be many outsiders left in the mines above. Wu Yang said, "Let's go together. Ning Eaba will stay behind. You will be in charge of the camp." There were 30 or so Dao Lord Patriarchs in this group, with some of them having joined later on. They had all come from different continents, and they had all entered this place from different continents. The group of Dao Lords headed towards the mines, quickly heading deep into the depths. The mine entrance was not big. It was a slanted entrance, and there was a large amount of wood to prevent the mine from collapsing. What was interesting was that the tunnel was not wet and was rather dry. There was even a slight breeze blowing from below. The smell was not bad, and the cool breeze was very comfortable on the face. After a while, they came to a large and spacious intersection. There were at least 6 entrances. Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly. As expected, this is complicated. Dalieba said, "If we split up like this, we won't have enough people." Wu Yang looked at Lei Xingfeng and said, "Feng, do you have any ideas?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Let's set up a secret door first. We'll go out separately and explore separately. Once there aren't enough people, we'll come back through the secret door and check the situation first. It's best if we can find a tunnel to the next level. This way, we'll block the tunnel to the next level and thoroughly check the tunnels above." Everyone felt that this was a good idea, and so they all nodded in agreement. Temporary secret portals were quite easy to set up, and quite a few Dao Lords had their own secret portals. A secret door was erected, with 2 Dao Lord Patriarchs standing guard over it. The others then split up and entered the tunnels. Lei Xingfeng and Wu Yang walked through the same tunnel. As they walked forward, Lei Xingfeng shot out a ball of lightning that hung a few meters in front of them, illuminating their surroundings. The tunnels were quite messy, and forks would appear from time to time. Every time a fork appeared, it would be recorded and one person would be sent in to investigate. When there was only one person left, they would return through the secret door. This time, it was just a simple exploration. In just a short while, the team had completely split up. Lei Xingfeng and Wu Yang walked into a spacious tunnel. Under the illumination of the lightning, the tunnel was extremely deep. Moreover, the tunnel was slanted downwards. The two didn't walk very fast, constantly paying attention to the movements ahead. There were outsiders here. If they were ambushed, it wouldn't be worth it. As they spoke, a black shadow suddenly darted out. Lei Xingfeng had been controlling the lighting in front of them, so when the person darted out, the lightning just happened to shine on him. In an instant, the lightning fell and smashed into the black shadow. Wu Yang suddenly took a step forward, and an illusory hand suddenly flew out. Right in front of Lei Xingfeng's eyes, it forcibly grabbed a tail. Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. The tail was aimed at his eyes. The lightning landed on the outsider's body. Instantly, the outsider began to tremble violently. The power of the lightning was monstrous. The outsider instantly tasted what it meant to be stiff and numb. Wu Yang grabbed the tail, and the illusory hand squeezed hard. With a crack, the tail was broken. Lei Xingfeng was shocked. He immediately shot out a thick bolt of lightning. With a series of crackling sounds, the outsider was burned by the lightning and revealed. This was a Heaven Lord Realm outsider. Wu Yang and Lei Xingfeng worked together to kill him in an instant. Then, another outsider ran out. Lei Xingfeng slapped him, but he didn't expect his opponent to be a Dao Lord Realm Patriarch. Not only was his slap blocked, but it was also smashed by the opponent's tail. Fortunately, Wu Yang was beside him. He grabbed the outsider and threw him behind him. Lei Xingfeng broke out in cold sweat again. The outsider and Wu Yang were fighting. Lei Xingfeng could only watch from aside. He couldn't interfere at all. Wu Yang suddenly said, "Retreat." Lei Xingfeng turned and ran. Before he could run far, he heard a muffled sound. Wu Yang caught up from behind. He said, Go quickly. The tunnel is about to collapse." No one knew what Wu Yang did, but the entire tunnel started to shake violently. Wu Yang grabbed Lei Xingfeng and dashed into the secret door. In an instant, they were back at the starting point. Lei Xingfeng looked back and saw that the tunnel had completely collapsed. Many Dao Lord Realm Patriarchs were in a sorry state. A few of them were slightly injured. These were all caused by the sneak attacks of the outsiders. Wu Yang and Dalai Ba didn't look too good. They finally realized that this mission wasn't easy at all. This wasn't a large-scale battle. Instead, it was a battle in a narrow and dark tunnel. It was much more dangerous than a street fight in a city. Qiling Changhu said, "There are many outsiders hiding in there. They're all very powerful. If we send our men down, we'll suffer a lot of casualties." One of the Dao Lord Realm Patriarchs said, "Yeah, they're all hiding down there, waiting for an opportunity to sneak attack. It's really hard to guard against them. What should we do?" Wu Yang said with a headache, "The tunnel is very fragile. If we use a little force, the whole thing will collapse. It's very troublesome." He shook his head. He thought about the battle just now. He had almost buried himself. Although he wouldn't die, it was too embarrassing. Lei Xingfeng said, "The time limit of this mission is quite broad. However, I have an idea. I don't know if anyone is interested." Someone asked, "What idea?" Lei Xingfeng said, "The upper layer of the mine here has been dug clean. We'll only know what kind of mine it is when we reach the mining surface or the mining surface. It seems like this mine isn't simple. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many experts left inside." Someone interrupted Lei Xingfeng and said, "We know that. But what's your idea?" Okay, tell us. Everyone glared at that person, causing him to shrink back. Lei Xingfeng said, "We'll think of a way to get people to the mining surface and then build a secret door. We'll go down directly to mine." One of the Dao Lord Realm Patriarchs said, But there are outsiders inside." Lei Xingfeng chuckled and said, "As long as we succeed in building the secret door, we'll destroy the middle and upper layers of the tunnel. Since the outsiders like to stay inside, then let them stay." This was an extremely ruthless move. If it was carried out, the outsiders inside would not be able to survive. It was no different from burying them alive. Of course, if they had the ability, they might be able to dig a tunnel to escape. Wu Yang said, "But this mission is to eliminate all the outsiders in the mine. Will we complete it just like that?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Or we can dig a tunnel ourselves and collapse the original tunnel." Everyone was talking at once. After a while, Lei Xingfeng asked, "Are there any water-type cultivators here?" Someone raised his hand and said, "I'm a water-type cultivator, a Dao Lord Realm Patriarch, but he was usually very quiet and rarely spoke. Water-type cultivators were far inferior to ice-type cultivators. In terms of attack power, water-type cultivators were not very powerful. Even if this person had become a Tao Lord Realm Patriarch, his status in this group was low. Therefore, he was always quiet. Lei Xingfeng said, "Do you know how to control water?" A trace of anger flashed across that person's face, but he quickly controlled it. He said, "I'm a water-type cultivator. Of course I can control water." Lei Xingfeng was overjoyed. "Very good, very good, very good." That person said, "What do you mean?" Even if he was a weaker water-type Tao Lord Realm Patriarch, he was still a Tao Lord Realm Patriarch and could not be looked down upon. There was a trace of anger in his tone. Lei Xingfeng said with a smile, "What if we pour water into the tunnel?" Everyone immediately stopped discussing and stared at Lei Xingfeng with their mouths agape. This method was even more terrifying. Even if outsiders were not afraid of water, pouring water into the tunnel was different. It would cause the entire tunnel to collapse. Once buried hundreds of meters underground, no matter how strong one was, it would be useless. A relieved expression appeared on that person's face. He knew that he had misunderstood Lei Xingfeng. He said, "There isn't much water in this area, but there is still a way to flood the entire mine. I can bring water in from the outside. I just need a group of people to help me open up a channel." Wu Yang said, "This is a good method. It can force the other party out and destroy some traps." "I agree." Daily Abis said, "I didn't expect that using water would have such an effect." Hee, very good, very good. I like the idea of flooding the tunnel." "I agree." The few leaders agreed, and the others did not have any objections. The water-type Tao Lord Realm Patriarch immediately gathered people and began to dig a channel outside that meandered towards the mine. Chapter 573. More than 2,000 cultivators might not be of much use if they were used in battle, but if they were used to dig a river, it would be very easy. They were all almighties, and each had their own methods. Very quickly, a river that was more than 10 meters wide was dug out from the river outside. Lei Xingfeng and the others waited at the entrance of the mine, waiting for the river water to pour in. With a master of water control, they were not worried that the mine would be flooded. This was the reason why Lei Xingfeng wanted to find the water-type Tao Lord Patriarch. If they could not enter the mine again, they would have to dig it again. This was a huge project. After finding a master of water control, Lei Xingfeng boldly started to flood the mine. Soon, the river water was led to the entrance of the mine and poured in. The group of Tao Lord Patriarchs stared at the entrance of the mine. The water poured in, but it would not be filled up in a short time. The group of Tao Lord Patriarchs were still on guard at first, but after pouring in for a long time, there was no reaction. Gradually, they relaxed and began to discuss. Lei Xingfeng asked the water-type Tao Lord Patriarch, "After we clean up the outsiders, can you open up the tunnel again?" That person said proudly, "No problem. Even if it collapses, I have a way to open up the tunnel. As long as there is water, there will be no problem." Dalaiba laughed. "Afeng, this move of yours is too ruthless. Why did you think of pouring water in?" Xian Feng spoke. "Using water is the easiest. You can also use smoke, that's fine too." Dalaiba said, "How can the effect of smoke compare to water?" Lei Xingfeng laughed. "What if it is poisonous smoke? Is it better than flooding?" Everyone was immediately frightened. The poisonous smoke was impossible to guard against. Dalaiba shook his head and said, "I really don't know how you have so many tricks up your sleeve. Anyone who goes against you will be in trouble." He felt a chill in his heart. With his knowledge and experience, it was impossible for him to think of such a move. Just this point alone made him admire Lei Xingfeng. Wu Yang said, "This way, we can avoid a bitter battle and protect our subordinates. I think flooding is a good idea." The sound of splashing water continued to ring out. Although everyone was discussing, their attention was still focused on the pitch-black entrance of the mine. They were all thinking that the nearby outsiders should have already broken out of the encirclement. As long as they understood that the water was really pouring down, the only way to survive was to get out. After pouring in water for 2 days, not a single outsider managed to get out of the mine. The Downlord patriarchs took turns to rest. Thankfully, they were all high-level cultivators. Even if they didn't rest for a few days, it wouldn't be too much of a problem. They did not need to rest for long periods of time. The team of more than 2,000 people was tidying up the river so that the water would flow more smoothly into the mine. On the second day, the water flowed even faster. Lei Xingfeng exclaimed, "I wonder how big it is down there." No one knew what was down there. Wu Yang guessed, "The bottom layer should be filled with water. I don't know if the water has reached the second or third layer. If the second layer is also flooded, then all the outsiders should be forced to the top layer. It's about time we prepare." At this moment, a black shadow rushed out of the mine. All of the Downlord patriarchs present had already divided up the work. Thus, when the black figure charged out, 5 or 6 Downlord patriarchs attacked together, instantly obliterating the outsider. This was a heavenly lord outsider. There was no way he could withstand the concentrated attacks of 5 or 6 Downlord patriarchs. One outsider after another charged out. None of them were able to withstand the concentrated attacks of these Downlord patriarchs. Once they entered a concentrated state, even Downlord patriarchs would be pulverized. Only supreme Downlord patriarchs would be able to do so. However, such Downlord patriarchs wouldn't hide within the tunnels. The outsiders who rushed out were killed one after another. Not a single outsider could withstand the attacks. Almost all of them died when they came out. There was no chance of survival. More and more outsiders tried to break out of the encirclement. Wu Yang and the others led a group of Downlord patriarchs to fight to their heart's content. As long as one of them came out, all the Downlord patriarchs would unleash a single attack. There were truly all sorts of elemental attacks. The buildings that were originally covering the mine were completely destroyed. The focused attacks of the Downlord patriarchs were simply too powerful. They had been very careful, but they still managed to destroy the entire building. On the 4th day, the entire mine was finally filled with water. At this time, no one came out. Lei Xingfeng did not take action. He just counted how many outsiders were charging out. After counting, he was shocked. There were about 1,300 to 1,400 outsiders. There was no lack of Heavenly Lord and Dao Lord level outsiders. If 2,000 cultivators were to go down and clear them out, not to mention how complicated the terrain was below, even if they were to set up a formation and attack, he believed that even if his side could win, they would be lucky to have lost half of their people. If they went down to clear them out, not many of them would be able to survive. Seeing that the mine was filled with water, Lei Xingfeng said, "It should be enough to guard here for a few more days. Continue to fill it with water." Although the mine was full, the water level was gradually decreasing. If they did not fill it with water, the water level would sink down quickly. Wu Yang said, "We'll take shifts. With 4 Dao Lords and 10 Heavenly Lords, I don't believe that the people below can hold out for long." Lei Xingfeng said, "Let's go back and rest. Also, send someone to ask the other teams how to attack the mine. In this basin, there are not only these 2 mines, but countless mines. Because this area was densely packed with rich ores, and most of them were quite precious veins, many outsiders hid here. They could not escape, so they could only fight with the cultivators in the mines." Very soon, the news came back. The operation to clear the mines was extremely difficult. The cultivators had suffered heavy casualties. The other teams had gone down to fight with the outsiders directly. Fighting in a place like a maze was unimaginably difficult. They had lost a lot of men. However, the Mingzhe Alliance did not punish them this time. Instead, they increased their efforts to replenish the lost men. The Mingzhe Alliance still achieved their goal. They destroyed the enemy and expended extra strength. 3 days later, after killing a few more outsiders at the entrance of the mine, no more came out. At this time, Wu Yang gave the order to draw the water out of the mine. The water-type Dao Lord Patriarch stood by the side of the mine. Lei Xingfeng and the others looked on curiously. The turbid water began to flow out in reverse. The Dao Lord Patriarch was standing at the edge of the hole, the watermark above his head emanating an invisible force that caused a large amount of water to erupt out of the hole like a geyser, pouring into the river. An Earth-style Dullard Patriarch had constructed a dam at the entrance of the hole, blocking the flow of the river water. The water spurted out faster than when it entered the mine. Lei Xingfeng and the others were impressed. This kind of Tao Lord Patriarch might be weak in combat, but his use of water was superb. In half a day, all the water in the mine was drawn out. This time, Wuyang and Daliba sent a large group of cultivators to explore. Many of them were earth elemental cultivators. They were in charge of clearing out the clogged tunnels and the collapsed caves. With these cultivators, the entire mine was cleaned up very quickly. In just a day, someone reported that they had reached the mining surface. Many corpses of outsiders were found. Without exception, they were all low-level outsiders. When the water came pouring down, they did not have time to get up and were drowned alive. There was nowhere for them to escape. Wu Yang and Alai Ba organized the high-level cultivators to go down. Lei Xingfeng followed these Tao lords and heavenly lords into the mine. This time, there were clear signs in the tunnels. They went down many twists and turns, and it only took them a little more than an hour to reach the bottom of the mine. When Lei Xingfeng reached the bottom, he was secretly shocked. The ores here were too dense. All he could see were flashes of light. Others might only see black ores, but in Lei Xingfeng's eyes, it was completely different. These were very precious ores. Most importantly, there were so many of them. The low-level cultivators had already been sent away. The group of Tao Lord Patriarchs and a few heavenly lords had been assigned tasks and left the mining surface. These Tao Lord Patriarchs' eyes were shining. They were waiting for Wu Yang and Alai Ba to give the order to mine. This was their benefit. They had the right to mine for a period of time. Of course, there was a limit to this time. The less time they had to occupy the mine, the more time they had to mine. If they occupied the mine at the designated time, then they would not have any time to mine. This was also the reason why so many teams had attacked without caring about casualties. Thanks to Lei Xingfeng's flood technique, they had wiped out all the outsiders in the mine. This saved them a lot of time, and they had enough time to mine. Everyone was very excited. This was the time to harvest. Lei Xingfeng said, "This mining surface is very narrow. We have to expand it. There are ores on both sides. We will each choose a direction to mine." This was destructive mining. In any case, they would mine as much as they could. It all depended on whether they could store it or not. Although everyone had their own hidden Luin space, if the ores had not been purified, they would take up a lot of space. A ton of ores might take up a fist-sized material after the initial purification. Therefore, they had to collect as much ores as possible and purify the ores as much as possible. Only by using less hidden Luin space would they be able to obtain more materials. Lei Xingfeng and Wu Yang were together. Wu Yang knew that Lei Xingfeng's harvest would definitely be better than his own. The Tao Lord Patriarchs all started digging towards the two sides of the mining surface. Each of them used an illusory hand to grab the ores. Instantly, there was a rumbling sound. Fortunately, this place had just been flooded, so there was no smoke. Lei Xingfeng did not stay here. Instead, he worked together with Wu Yang to open a path. With Lei Xingfeng's foresight, how could he dig with everyone? That would be too blind. Since he had come down and seen such a huge mine, he would not take ordinary ores. He had to find something good. Chapter 574. Dalai Ba's eyes were sharp. He secretly followed Wu Yang and Lei Xingfeng. Ever since he saw these two, he felt that his luck had taken a turn for the better. Originally, he was in a dead end, but now, not only was he not going to die, he was even able to get some good stuff. This made him very convinced of the two, especially Lei Xingfeng. He felt that it was strange that these two people would follow even if their levels were lower than his. After walking for a while, Wu Yang discovered Alai Ba. He asked curiously, "Why aren't you digging? Why are you following us?" Dalai Ba laughed. "As long as I follow you guys, there will definitely be good things. Let's dig together." Lei Xingfeng didn't care. "So what if you follow us? We'll dig from here. Everyone, let's dig together." Wu Yang didn't hesitate to send out an illusory hand to grab at the stone wall. With a cracking sound, A large piece of rock was grabbed and crushed by the illusory hand. Then, Lei Xingfeng's illusory hand grabbed a large piece of rock, crushed it, and threw it to the back. Dalai Ba immediately went forward and sent out an illusory hand to grab at the wall. With a cracking sound, another large piece of rock was forcefully grabbed. The three of them took turns to send out their illusory hands. Soon, a tunnel extended out. In a few minutes, a tunnel about 10 meters long was formed. The tunnel was filled with rocks, blocking the exit. This was done intentionally by Lei Xingfeng. One must have the awareness to steal food. If others found out, it wouldn't be considered stealing food. Dalai Ba was also a very interesting person. He didn't ask what Lei Xingfeng was doing. When he was told to dig, he dug. When he was told to stop, he stopped. He was absolutely obedient and didn't say anything. This made Wu Yang and Lei Xingfeng very satisfied. Lei Xingfeng squinted his eyes from time to time, thinking carefully about something. Every time this happened, Wu Yang and Dalai Ba would quietly stand behind him and wait for Lei Xingfeng's instructions. The tunnel continued to be dug for 100 meters before going downwards. Soon, a slanted downwards path appeared. This time, the excavation didn't take long. They reached a 10-meter-long tunnel and then turned left. Less than 3 meters away, Lei Xingfeng's illusory hand grabbed a large piece of rock. Wu Yang and Dalaba said at the same time, "We found the ore." Lei Xingfeng said, "It's still early. Continue digging with me. You could take these ores or throw them away. The good stuff should be inside." The three of them continued. Only Dalieba kept the ores in his hidden lens space. Wu Yang and Lei Xingfeng threw the ores behind them with disdain. The excavation speed was very fast. The illusory hand was very useful, just like the excavators in Lei Xingfeng's previous life. It grabbed and dug a large hole. The three of them continued to dig. Their progress was very impressive. Gradually, the purity of the ores became higher and higher. Lei Xingfeng said, "Okay, we can store them here. The quality of the ores is very good." The ores here were different from the ones before. There were sparkling stars in the ores. Lei Xingfeng extended the mining area to the left and right. This way, the three of them could dig together. Lei Xingfeng was in the middle, Wu Yang was on the left, and Dalai Ba was on the right. They pushed their way through. In just a moment, a large hole was dug. Lei Xingfeng laughed. "Let me deal with it first. The ores take up too much space." He piled the ores on the ground. An electric net fell on top of the ores. In an instant, a large amount of impurities were removed. Soon, a melted liquid was obtained. After a bit of condensation, a piece of basic refined product was obtained. Although it was ugly, it was still very valuable. Wu Yang and Dalai Ba had their own methods to quickly extract basic refined products. However, this method was very fast, but it was also very wasteful. The three of them didn't feel any heartache. If they didn't dig, they wouldn't get anything. Even if they wasted half of the ores, they wouldn't care. When they were tired, they would rest. When they were hungry, they would eat some dry food. When they were thirsty, they would drink some water. The three of them continued to dig. As they went deeper, Dalai Ba discovered a very strange thing. The quality of the ores was getting better and better. They would even find large pieces of crystallized ores that were much better than basic refined ores. One must know that the ore veins below were crisscrossing. Normal people would have a hard time digging to the top. Thinking of Lei Xingfeng's performance of the mountain pass, he knew that Lei Xingfeng must have grasped some kind of or seeking skill. Lei Xingfeng was getting more and more excited. This was because the ores in front of him were shining brighter and brighter. This meant that the effective content of the ores was also increasing. The higher the purity of the ores, the better the quality. The ores here were at least a few times better than the ores on the surface. When Lei Xingfeng grabbed a large piece of, or his eyes suddenly lit up. The light made Lei Xingfeng squint his eyes. This was a small area, about 1/2 meter in radius. There were grains of golden light that were dazzling. Wu Yang and Dalai Ba were alarmed. This light was too strange. Wu Yang said, "What is it? It looks like a new ore." Dalai Ba also looked carefully. He said, "Dig it out and let's see." Lei Xingfeng flipped his hand and took out a steel hammer. This hammer had a sharp end and a round end. He didn't say anything and carefully started to knock. He peeled off a golden grain the size of a melon seed and placed it in the palm of his hand. He said, "Do you know what this is?" Actually, he had already recognized it. It was the golden item that he had obtained last time. However, this one was bigger, better, and rarer. He just didn't expect to find such a treasure here. Wu Yang shook his head. Dalai Ba also shook his head. He said, "I don't know what it is. I haven't seen it before." Lei Xingfeng didn't say anything else. He peeled off the grains one by one and put them away carefully. Wu Yang and Dalai Ba didn't say anything. They didn't ask for more either. They just waited patiently. After more than 2 hours, Wu Yang and Dalai Ba sat to the side and ate their rations. Dalai Ba said, "Maybe it's a new type of high-grade material that I haven't added before. To be honest, I don't want to know more about materials that I don't use. There are too many of them." Wu Yang said, "Since a phone likes it, let him collect it. If he knows what it is in the future and needs it, he can ask a phone for it." Dalai Ba said, "I only want what I need. Back then, I spent a lot of time and effort collecting materials to advance. It's too difficult. Every advancement is a huge trial. Without the help of the sect and the high-grade materials from the Ming-Zhe Alliance, I can't advance." Wu Yang said, "There are some things that we can't get. Only a huge force like the Ming-Zhe Alliance can get it." Lei Xingfeng didn't let go of a single golden grain. This kind of spiritual item that could only be formed from a large or vein was extremely precious. If the Ming-Zhe Alliance knew about it, they would probably hunt him down. If he didn't get it from the restriction hub, he wouldn't even know that it was a spiritual item. It was a super rare treasure. It had a radius of 0.5 meter and a thickness of 2 feet. The closer to the center, the denser the golden grains were. The grains were also bigger. The largest grain was the size of a small grape. After some calculations, Lei Xingfeng actually obtained more than 700 spiritual items. Lei Xingfeng carefully stored them in a box made of jade. Only by using this box would the spiritual items not lose their spiritual nature. After digging it clean, Lei Xingfeng checked a few more times. After making sure that he didn't miss anything, he said, "Let's continue digging." Dalai Ba laughed and said, "A phone. Why are you collecting it so carefully?" Without waiting for Lei Xingfeng to speak, Wu Yang explained, "This is his habit. He will carefully store any material that he doesn't recognize. In the future, when he collects more information, he will be able to recognize it. He has always been like this." Dalai Ba was relieved. Everyone had their own quirks. Lei Xingfeng's behavior was pardonable. He laughed and said, "This habit is good. It's better than mine. Although I also store materials that I don't recognize, I don't pay much attention to them. This way, every time I clean up my collection, there will always be surprises for me." "Haha, this is not bad." Wu Yang said, "This is also a method. However, it will still cause a waste." Although the hidden Lun space was huge, especially for a Tao Lord old ancestor, it was very easy to fill it up. For example, if the ores weren't purified in time, then it would be easy to fill the hidden Lun space. One must know that the hidden Lun space was usually filled with all the important items. One couldn't just throw them away to store ores. Therefore, one had to adjust the space frequently to get rid of useless items. Therefore, it wasn't impossible to throw away the good stuff. This was a super rich mine. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to produce spiritual items. Moreover, this mine was made up of various mineral veins. Therefore, the variety and quality of the ores were all top-notch. This was especially true for the raw ores. It was just like the gold mines in Lei Xingfeng's previous life. The real rich ores were the so-called golden sand or even nugget gold. With Lei Xingfeng's eyesight, it was like a mouse falling into a rice jar. The appearance of all kinds of raw ores was an eye-opener for Wu Yang and Dalai Ba. The two of them dug in different directions according to their needs. Lei Xingfeng also chose the ores that he wanted the most. In less than an hour, the three of them had each dug out a tunnel that was more than 10 meters long. Along the way, Lei Xingfeng only dug for the most valuable ores. He didn't hesitate to give up on ordinary ores. He simply wasn't willing to spend time purifying them. After working for 3 days, Wu Yong and Alai Ba couldn't stay any longer. The two of them were captains. They couldn't stay underground forever. After some discussion, the two of them returned to the gathering point of the mine through their own secret door. Lei Xingfeng didn't care about this. His mission was to dig and collect more resources. Before Wu Yong left, he gave Lei Xingfeng a look. Lei Xingfeng smiled and nodded slightly. He knew what Wu Yong meant. Chapter 575. After the two left, Lei Xingfeng immediately changed directions and started digging crazily. Soon, he was deep into the ground. Everything he dug out, be it soil, rocks, or ores, was piled up behind him, blocking the passage behind him. Then, he started to dig downwards, and after a dozen-meter-long tunnel, Xian Feng entered the mine below, and with his eyesight, he knew that there was good stuff below, and in a moment he touched the ore. Lei Xingfeng dug out a space of about 10 square meters and flashed into the mirror realm. When he came out of the mirror realm, he saw a group of people sitting in a wooden shed. Lei Xingfeng laughed. "I'm so busy, but you guys are sitting in my house and eating." As he spoke, he came to the wooden shed and sat down to eat. The table full of food was brought over by Jean Depeng. Thunderstorm and Gao Yi were there. Tiger Love, Mad Eagle, and Jean Dia sat on one side. Xi and Jiaoluan and Qi Meiyan were also there. Thunderstorm asked, "How is it? Is everything going well in the Great Three Gates?" Lei Xingfeng said as he ate, "I left the Great Three Gates a long time ago. My ancestor and I went to the outer continent and fought with the outsiders." Hee. Gao Yi said, "Is this what you talked about when you came back last time?" Thunderstorm patted his head and said, "Yeah, I think I mentioned it before. Sigh, I'm old. I can't remember." Gao Yi said disdainfully, "Old bro, you're not old. You just don't care. You don't care about these things." Jean Dias said, "You came back at this time. What's the matter?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Of course there's something. I want everyone to go together." Xi and Jiaoluan asked curiously, "Are we going to fight?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Fight? No, it's not a fight. It's war." Xi and Jiaoluan didn't understand. "War? You want us to fight?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Am I that stupid? Thousands of cultivators died in the battle with the outsiders. Not to mention perfected lords, even heavenly lords and Dao lords suffered heavy casualties. You want us to send you to your deaths? I won't do it." Gai was also curious. He asked, "Then what are we going to do?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Mining." Actually, Xi and Jiaoluan really wanted to experience the battle. Although he had been a perfected lord for a long time, he hadn't seen any large-scale battles. Small battles like these, small battles, they weren't attractive to him. Everyone immediately lost interest and revealed looks of disdain. Qi Meiyan said, "How boring. What's the point of mining? It's so tiring and bitter. Just let the disciples below do it." The ore, Xinglei Xinglei, Xinglei Xingfeng Dao Dao, and even some ores, only Dao 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 and Dao Lord and it. Mining. It, Gao Yi said, "Of course it's worth it. If you don't want to go, then don't go. I'm going anyway." Thunderstorm smiled. "Okay, I'll go too." The others couldn't stay calm anymore. They all said they wanted to go. Qi Meiyun said, "I see. I'll go too." Xi and Jiaoluan said, "Junior sister, I thought you didn't want to go." Qi Meiyan argued, "That depends on what it is. If it's a normal mine, then who wants to go? If it's a high-level mine, then of course I want to go. After all, when a woman becomes unreasonable, no one is her opponent." Furthermore, Xian Feng and Qi Meiyun's relationship was extremely good. Of course he wouldn't mock her. "Let's go together. However, time is a bit tight. After you excavate, bring the ores into the mirror world. As for the purification, we'll talk about that later. Right now we're robbing, we're competing on speed and quantity. Dig as much as you can." Thunderstorm said, "No problem. As long as we set up the coordinates, we can empty it out." Lei Xingfeng said, "Okay, I'll bring everyone there." After quickly finishing his meal, Xian Feng brought a group of people to the underground mining area where he had left a 10-square-meter space. Thunderstorm said, "Why is this place so cramped?" Lei Xingfeng said, "I just opened it up. You guys dig in this direction. Don't dig up. Don't dig left and right. There should be more ores down there. Gao Yi smiled. No problem. After we expand it, we'll go back and bring more people. This amount of people is far from enough. Lei Xingfeng broke out in cold sweat. He could imagine that as long as the Ming-Zhe alliance didn't notice, they could keep digging. This was the first time he saw such a rich mine. Everyone rubbed their hands and started digging. Lei Xingfeng said, I'll leave this place to everyone. Remember, block the path behind us. I have to go back. After a while, you guys can bring me back. Once this place was blocked, Lei Xingfeng wouldn't be able to come back. So he had to go back to the mirror realm and have someone bring him back. Only then could he set the new coordinates. Thunderstorm smiled. No problem. If we don't empty this place, we'll be letting a phone down. Everyone laughed. This kind of sneaky digging by relying on the mirror realm was a huge cheat. No matter how defensive the Ming-Zhe alliance was, they wouldn't be able to stop it. They didn't even know that there were such sneaky cultivators. Mobilizing everyone in the mirror realm to dig was Lei Xingfeng's goal. There were still ores above, but Lei Xingfeng wouldn't touch them. The more ores below, the better. So he was determined to mine all the ores below. Even if he couldn't steal all of them, he had to steal the best part. Resources were the foundation of development. Without resources, the hidden sect couldn't develop. Lei Bao said, wait till we reach the bottom and form enough space. Then we'll go back and gather more people. Interesting, letting off Feng enter such a place. Isn't that inviting a thief into the house? Ha ha ha. Lei Xingfeng said, Yi, I'm not a thief. I brought people here to dig. This place doesn't say who it belongs to. This was the real reason. Everyone laughed and started digging. The more people there were, the more strength there was. Soon, 2 tunnels extended downwards. A few hours later, Lei Bao and the others had opened up a large space below. Then they returned to the mirror realm and gathered a large number of people. Among them were many cultivators who hadn't reached the first ring sage level. These people needed tools to dig out the ores, but with so many people, the digging speed became very fast. It was a pity that this place wasn't suitable for normal people. Almost all the practitioners that were able to come from the mirror world had come, including Jean Depang. He had another mission, which was to be responsible for everyone's rations. The entire secret sect had mobilized. Gucci and Tang also entered the mine, with Gucci in charge of commanding. Xi and Feng had already returned to his original spot, away from the secret sect's mining area. He couldn't leave for too long to avoid attracting attention. After returning to the top level of the mine, Lei Xingfeng came out of the secret door he set up. Wu Yang and Dalieba's teams took turns to mine at the bottom level, so there were still many cultivators guarding the top level. There were also cultivators patrolling outside the mine. Lei Xingfeng asked around and quickly found Wu Yang and Dalieba. The 2 of them were sitting in the remains of a building. There were a few heavenly monarchs and Dao Lord Patriarchs around them. Seeing Lei Xingfeng come in, Wu Yang smiled and said, Feng, have a seat. Lei Xingfeng sat down and said, is there any news from the Ming-Zhe alliance? One of the Dao Lord Patriarchs smiled and said, there's news. As a reward, we can mine here for 20 days. Counting from today, we could take out the ores we collect and exchange them for things we need. For example, cultivation techniques, medicines, or refining materials. Lei Xingfeng said, oh, where can we exchange for them? Dalieba said, not far. It's in the middle of the mine. There's a trading spot there. We just notified them. Lei Xingfeng and Wu Yang looked at each other. They were a little excited. Cultivation techniques. Even if they couldn't use them with a secret door, they would be able to use them no matter what kind of cultivation techniques they had. They didn't expect such a good thing to happen. Wu Yang said, we're discussing splitting up and exchanging the ores for things we need. Lei Xingfeng said, okay, I want to go too. Wu Yang nodded and said, we'll go over later. However, it's best to organize the ores and do a simple purification. If you want to exchange for things you need, you have to use at least basic purification materials. Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, yes, I've basically purified them all. Wu Yang said, okay, very good. Dalieba, send someone to ask how many people want to exchange for points this time. We have to organize them. Dalieba nodded and said, "No problem." As he spoke, he discussed with a few Tao Lord Patriarchs and a few Heavenly Lords. 2 Heavenly Lords immediately ran towards the mine. After waiting for about half an hour, many cultivators arrived one after another. When the cultivators heard the news, they were all elated. It was finally worth it. Not only did they save their lives, but they could also exchange for many good things. As for the ores, they just had to dig as hard as they could during this period. When it was time for them to rest and patrol, they could purify the ores in exchange for things they couldn't get before, especially materials for advancement. These are what they needed the most. On the same day, Wu Yang and Dalieba led a team of about 100 people to the exchange point. On the way, Lei Xingfeng and Wu Yang walked at the back of the team and discussed in whispers. Lei Xingfeng said, "Ancestor, the mining area here is too big and has all kinds of ores. If we just dig under our mining area, we will be at a disadvantage. We have to think of a way to dig to other mining areas. That way, we will gain more." Wu Yang said, "If we are discovered, we will be in trouble." Lei Xingfeng whispered, "What are you afraid of? If they discover us, we will retreat. They won't be able to find us." Wu Yang pondered for a moment and said, "Okay, but we have to be extra careful. It would be best if you can find the time to lead the team. You just have to give some pointers. You don't have to dig by yourself." Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "If we can rely on the Mingzhe Alliance, I am confident that I can secretly suck their blood. Hee, we will strengthen our strength. Even if we can't compete with the Mingzhe Alliance, we will gradually become a big sect that the Mingzhe Alliance won't dare to underestimate. At that time, we can openly occupy a better continent." Wu Yang nodded and said, "That is the safest way. Yes, it seems that we have reached the exchange point." Chapter 576. It was a sea of people. The exchange point was in a huge, empty space. It was densely packed with people. Lei Xingfeng estimated that there were at least 20 to 30,000 cultivators. It was like a huge market. Wu Yang was stunned. "Isn't there too many people?" Lei Xingfeng laughed bitterly. "Who knows how many cultivators the Ming-Zhe Alliance controls? It's scary." The Lai boss said, "There aren't many large sections. There should be tens of thousands of medium-sized sections. There are countless small-sized sections. They're scattered across the continent and are not conspicuous. But when gathered together, this is only a small portion." Lei Xingfeng saw over 1,000 wooden sheds. When he got closer, he realized that the exchange points were also divided into different areas. For example, the exchange points for medicine, techniques, and materials. There were at least a few dozen areas. Wu Yang and Lei Xingfeng were not interested in the exchange points for medicine. The two of them were interested in cultivation techniques and materials. Very quickly, the group dispersed. People split into 2s and 3s to look for things they were interested in. Everyone had quite a few primary purified ores. They should be able to exchange for things they liked. Wu Yang and Lei Xingfeng passed by the wooden sheds that were used to exchange medicine. There was a large row of sheds that were used to exchange medicine. Lei Xingfeng curiously walked over to take a look. He realized that they were all primary medicine. Healing medicine was the most common, followed by antidotes, medicine to increase battle strength, and so on. They were all low-grade medicine. Then, he looked at the cultivator exchange points. He was shocked to realize that this exchange was practically robbery. A bottle of the most common primary healing medicine could be exchanged for a ton of primary purified ores. It was a frightening exchange. Lei Xingfeng could not help but shake his head. "This is too ruthless." A cultivator beside him heard and could not help but laugh. "Ruthless? It's already good that you have something to exchange. This is the battlefield. If it was any other time, even if you had something, you wouldn't be able to exchange it." Lei Xingfeng was speechless. He also wanted to open an exchange point here. He could earn a lot here. Of course, he knew that if he dared to open an exchange point, someone would immediately come to clean him up. This right belonged to the Mingzhe Alliance. Next to the exchange point for potions was the exchange point for cultivation techniques. Lei Xingfeng and Wu Yang excitedly looked at the cultivation techniques that could be exchanged. Lei Xingfeng snatched a page of the Star Python record, and on it, there were various methods to exchange for cultivation techniques. After looking at it for a while, Lei Xingfeng speechlessly handed it to Wu Yang. Wu Yang couldn't help but be speechless after reading it. Good heavens, who can afford this? Lei Xingfeng said. Also, if we exchange too much, they will start to suspect us. His voice was very soft as he continued. We can afford it, but we can't do it like this. Otherwise, you'll get into trouble. Lei Xingfeng predicted that he would be able to obtain a large amount of initially purified ores by using the secret door to excavate the underground mine. He could use this to exchange for ores, but with such a large amount, anyone would be suspicious. Where did all these ores come from? Wu Yang said, record down what you need. We'll entrust someone to exchange for it. The two discussed for a while and decided to exchange for a few things first, the most important of which were the basic cultivation techniques. The basic cultivation techniques here were very comprehensive, and although the exchange rate was a bit low, the two of them could afford it. As for the advanced cultivation techniques, there were too many purified ores to exchange for, so they would have to wait for a while. It did not take long for Zhang Xian to purchase a set of all of the foundational cultivation techniques that the secret sect lacked. This used up more than half of the purified ores in their hidden lens space. Until the exchange was completed, Lei Xingfeng couldn't stop muttering, too shady, too King shady. It's too shady. Wu Yang laughed and said, don't be dissatisfied. These things, even if you have ores, you can't exchange for them. As for the other advancement materials, the two of them searched through the ore purification materials in their storage and couldn't help but smile bitterly. There weren't many things left to exchange. Wu Yang suggested, let's exchange a few things. There are some things that we can't get at all. Lei Xingfeng agreed, and the two of them found the place to exchange for the advancement materials. After looking through the records of the Star Python record, the two of them could only shake their heads and sigh. At most, they could only exchange for a few things before using up all the purified ores they excavated. Of course, the gold spirit items weren't counted. Those things couldn't be taken out. After exchanging, Lei Xingfeng said, let's go back and dig harder. I don't believe that it won't be enough. He secretly made up his mind. With the help of the entire secret door, he planned to find someone to help him exchange. Dalai Ba happily came back and said, I exchanged for an advancement material that I've been looking for. This time I really made a profit. It's a pity that I don't have enough ores now. Are you done exchanging? If you're done, let's go back and mine. After obtaining benefits, one's interest was piqued. Although most of the gains were taken away by the Mingzhe alliance, this method was acceptable to most cultivators. As for the minority, who would care? That was what Lei Xingfeng was thinking. Who knew that just as he finished thinking, he heard someone roaring. King bastard. What kind of exchanging method is this? It's faster if you snatch it. Are you exchanging or not? If not, scram. Don't block the others. I've endured for a long time. How dare you talk to me like that? I'll King beat you up. Lei Xingfeng heard it and knew that it was the sound of a slap. Humans were curious creatures, so the crowd immediately rushed towards the direction of the quarrel. Wu Yang said, let's go and take a look. Dalai Ba said, they're fighting. Let's go and see what happened. Lei Xingfeng was also curious and rushed over with the crowd. The two of them faced each other like fighting cocks. One of them had a red face with two obvious palm marks. However, his aura was not weaker than his opponent, who was a Dao Lord Patriarch. Lei Xingfeng exclaimed, this person is awesome. A Dao Lord Patriarch. His aura is not weak at all. Amazing. Amazing. Dalai Ba said softly, he's just bullying others. The Dao Lord said, you dare to hit me? You dare to hit me. The Dao Lord Patriarch looked angry and said, why wouldn't I dare to hit you? I'll beat you up. As he said that, he rushed over and punched and kicked the Dao Lord until his nose and eyes turned purple. Lei Xingfeng saw that something was wrong. If the Dao Lord Patriarch really attacked, he would probably kill the other party in an instant. However, this fellow's hands and feet were obviously restrained. Although his punches and kicks were extremely powerful, As a Tao Lord Patriarch, he could still withstand it and would not die because of it. Someone said, "This is Lord Leopard. Why is he fighting with someone from the Ming-Zhe alliance?" Someone else said, "He's Lord Leopard. He's very famous. I've heard of him a long time ago. He's a very loyal person." Everyone was discussing. Lei Xingfeng asked a cultivator beside him, "Who is Lord Leopard?" That person said unhappily, "Lord Leopard is Lord Leopard. Who else can it be?" Someone beside him said, "Lord Leopard is a good man. There's nothing wrong with his character." When Lei Xingfeng heard that, he thought that this person was a hero of the pugilistic world. So many cultivators knew this person, and he seemed to be very amazing. Lord Leopard beat up the Tao Lord and then took a few steps back and said, "Everyone, be reasonable. A portion of Huahongshi actually cost me 2 tons of purified ivory-colored steel. It's just a few kilograms short, but they won't let me exchange. F*CK. Not only won't they not exchange, they actually want me to scram. You're just a little Tao Lord, but you're really overturning the heavens." That Tao Lord crawled up and was still arrogant. He raised his head and said, "Well done. If you have the ability, kill me if you have the ability." Someone yelled, "Kill that bastard." Then, many people started to shout, "Kill him. Kill this guy." That Tao Lord's face showed a trace of panic. He didn't expect so many people to want to kill him. Lord Leopard also knew that he would be at a disadvantage if he continued to fight. He turned and left, saying, "I can't afford to lose face by killing this bastard." Lei Xingfeng whispered, "This Lord Leopard is very smart." The Lai Ba said, "He can't leave." Lei Xingfeng said, "Will someone stop him?" The Lai Ba said, "He beat up someone from Ming-Zhe alliance. How can a direct descendant be bullied by others?" Lei Xingfeng said, "So what if he beat him up? He didn't even kill him." The Lai Ba said indifferently, "If you don't believe me, just watch." Indeed, Lord Leopard had only taken a few steps when someone in the crowd said, "He's leaving just like that." An old man walked out. He bent his body and looked very old. He didn't have any aura and looked harmless. But Lord Leopard's hair stood on end. He stopped and slowly turned around, saying, "What do you want?" There was a trace of fear in his voice. The crowd suddenly spread out and formed a large empty circle. Only the old man, Lord Leopard, and that Tao Lord stood there. Lei Xingfeng didn't feel much. He just felt that this old man wasn't simple. But Wu Yang had a different feeling. He and Lai Ba had a serious expression. Wu Yang whispered, "An existence that surpasses Tao Lord." The Lai Ba said, "An emperor-level expert." Lei Xingfeng said, "What? What emperor-level expert?" The Lai Ba whispered, "A peak Tao Lord. If he can still advance, he will be an emperor-level expert." Exine Feng's heart turned cold. The appearance of this kind of expert. The Ming-Zhe alliance was really powerful. A small monarch was beaten up, and a monarch-level expert came out. This was the rhythm of showing off. Everyone took a step back. Most of them knew that this was a monarch realm master. This was a master that only large sects had. Any small or medium sects would immediately transfer such a master away from the Ming-Zhe alliance and give them extremely generous treatment. No cultivator could ignore such treatment. One had to know that the higher the cultivation level, the more terrifying the resources needed. Even if they were to cultivate, they would need to use up a large amount of resources. So, as long as an emperor-level expert appeared, he would definitely be an elder of Ming-Zhe alliance. They were powerful and had great authority. They could decide the life and death of their subordinates. Chapter 577. The old man said calmly, "Do you admit to looking down on the Ming-Zhe alliance?" Lord Leopard said, "No." Although his tone was firm, he was already feeling uneasy. The old man said, "Do you admit to beating up a disciple of the Ming-Zhe alliance?" Lord Leopard said, "He asked for it." The old man didn't say a word and instantly dashed out. Lord Leopard wanted to dodge, but he was suppressed by an invisible force. He couldn't move at all. In his shock, he suddenly wanted to release his seal. However, although the old man looked weak, once he moved, his movements were like lightning, striking his body with a loud bang. Lord Leopard waved his hands wildly in a futile attempt to block the attacks. However, the old man would not give him the chance to do so. Punch after punch, every punch landed on his flesh. Just like how Lord Leopard had violently beaten up the true monarch earlier, it was a violent beating that did not threaten his life but his dignity. The old man beat up Lord Leopard until his head was bleeding. All the cultivators were silent. This was a Dow monarch old ancestor, but he was beaten up like a pig. It was too terrifying. While Lord Leopard was being beaten up, he heaved a sigh of relief. He knew that the old man did not intend to kill him. However, such humiliation caused the hatred in his heart to boil like lava. Although he suppressed it, it would erupt sooner or later. After kicking Lord Leopard, the old man said calmly, "Go and report to the disciplinary camp. When you make a contribution, you will be done." Lord Leopard's face turned pale. After a while, he got up and said, "I'll go." He turned and left. Lei Xingfeng asked curiously, "Disciplinary camp? What's that?" Dalieba smiled bitterly. Those who made a mistake, those who were punished, and those who did not deserve death are usually sent to the disciplinary camp. Their missions are very dangerous. Very few of them come out alive after entering the disciplinary camp. Lei Xingfeng exclaimed, "There's such a place?" A cultivator at the side heard and sneered. "You don't even know about the disciplinary camp?" The disciplinary camp is considered good. At least you can come out after making a contribution. If you go to the Death Vanguard camp, it's a camp with no chance of survival. Dalai Ba explained, the Death Vanguard camp refers to the people that the Mingzai Alliance was planning to kill. By giving them a chance to die later, the Mingzai Alliance is showing mercy. The cultivator on the side said, "The Death Vanguard camp won't appear here. They usually go to other continents, not the ones they are attacking. For example, before deciding to launch a large-scale attack, the Death Vanguard camp will definitely come to investigate first. Once they're surrounded, it will be hard to survive. They're all desperados. The disciplinary camps are different. For example, if a large-scale battle breaks out here, the disciplinary camps will generally charge at the very front. If you're strong enough, you won't die so easily. This is why Lord Panther was so willing to go over. Given how strong a Dow Lord is, there's a very high chance that he'll survive." The old man waved his hand and said, "Why are you all crowding around? Go do what you're supposed to do. Disperse." No one dared to disobey. This was a sovereign king-level expert. Who would dare to be impudent? Wu Yang said, "Let's go back to mining." Dalaiba nodded and said, Yes. Get more things to exchange. There aren't many opportunities like this. The Mingzai Alliance is usually not willing to open such exchange points." Lei Xingfeng thought to himself, "The Urvanes here are all good things. The Mingzai Alliance only opened exchange points to prevent them from losing. They would probably take over the entire mining area after exchanging all the ores that everyone dug out. The Mingzai Alliance's control was definitely strong. No matter what, they had to first get enough ores to purify and get the things that they urgently needed to exchange. This would be extremely beneficial to the development of the secret sect. Wu Yang and Lei Xingfeng had the same idea. On the way back, the two of them ran very fast. Dalai Ba was puzzled. Why were the two of them running so fast? When they returned to their own mining area, Lei Xingfeng and the rest immediately went down into the tunnel. When only Wu Yang and Lei Xingfeng were left, they quietly returned to the Mirror Realm. The Mirror Realm was very lively. A huge empty space was specially opened. Countless ores were piled up there. There were people who specially came to purify the ores. The purified ores that had been preliminarily processed were piled up together according to their type. Wu Yang and Lei Xingfeng quickly arrived at the mining area of the secret sect. When they entered, they realized that it was full of people digging with all their might. Lei Xingfeng laughed and said, "The entire secret sect is mobilized. This time, our secret sect is going to be rich." Wu Yang looked at the busy crowd with satisfaction and said, Very good. Huh. He was very happy. If he were to look for these ores himself, he wouldn't be able to find them. Only an opportunity like this would allow him to encounter them. He said, "Be careful. Don't dig to the top. If you dig to another tunnel, quickly block it. Lei Xingfeng said, "It's okay. If the ores above haven't been dug clean, they won't dig to the bottom." The two of them walked around, and Lei Xingfeng pointed out the direction of the excavation. Only then did the two of them bring enough purified ores and plan to make another trip to exchange points. Lei Xingfeng had already discovered that as long as they didn't exchange too much in one area, they wouldn't attract attention. He and Wu Yang divided up the work. They made a list of the things they needed and ran to exchange for them. In terms of cultivation techniques, they obtained a set of basic and advanced cultivation techniques. For this, they paid a huge price. They also exchanged a lot of advancement materials. The two of them were very careful and tried not to attract attention. On the other hand, they used the resources of the Mingzhe Alliance to exchange for things of the Mingzhe Alliance. Wu Yang and Lei Xingfeng were very happy with this kind of thing. Who would like to trade for things of no cost? The things they exchanged could strengthen the cultivators of the secret sect. Moreover, the abundance of resources here was beyond their imagination. They could even find something as heaven-defying as a spiritual object. One could imagine how strong the Mingzhe Alliance was. There were large amounts of advancement materials and all kinds of good things. These things were nothing to the Mingzhe Alliance, but to the secret sect, they were too important. This solidified the foundation of the secret sect and also gave the cultivators of the secret sect a clear direction to advance. No matter how you evaluated it, its importance was self-evident. The 10 days of mining time was quickly up. The cultivators of the Mingzhe Alliance arrived and chased everyone who was still mining out. Wu Yang and Alai Ba regrouped and were about to leave. This mining was a reward operation. During this period of time, no matter how much you excavated, it belonged to you. No one had the right to take it away. Therefore, the cultivators were very satisfied. Of course, the majority of the ore they excavated was exchanged by the Mingzhe Alliance. Moreover, it was preliminary purified. Only a small portion was left. Of course, it was enough for personal use. Lei Xingfeng and Wu Yang were also very satisfied. Not to mention how many things they had exchanged. The key was that they had opened a mouse hole below the mine. As long as the Mingzhe Alliance didn't find out, they could continue to excavate. This kind of large-scale mine was definitely a treasure of every cultivation alliance. In the future, this would be an important area for the Mingzhe Alliance. Not to mention excavating, even wanting to enter would be difficult. The two teams returned to the camp, and new orders were quickly given. Dalai Ba said, "Our team is disbanded. There are 3 teams to choose from. Everyone can choose." The disbanding of the 2 teams was ordered by the Mingzhe Alliance. The Tao Lord Patriarchs and Heavenly Lords could freely choose to join any of the 3 teams. The others weren't so lucky. Wu Yang would definitely bring Lei Xingfeng. Dalai Ba also chose to follow Wu Yang. Qiling, Changhu, and Ning. The ABA also chose to follow Wu Yang. After this period of battle and life, they all knew how powerful Wu Yang was. This was especially true for Lei Xingfeng. He was a doghead strategist. No matter what the situation was, he would always be able to come up with an effective plan. This meant that they could preserve their lives and even take advantage of the situation. This time, Lei Xingfeng had a very high status in this group of people. A few Tao Lord Patriarchs also chose to follow Wu Yang. This included a Tao Lord Patriarch who could control water and a Tao Lord Patriarch who was proficient in earth. No one was a fool. Soon a small team was formed. This was how small groups were formed. There was a limit to the number of people who could go to the 3 teams. Wu Yang and Alai Ba were both captains, so they had the right to choose first. They discussed for a while and chose a larger team. The others also chose their own teams. Wu Yang said, "Let's go and report." With the list given by the Mingzhe Alliance, 7 or 8 Tao Lords and Heavenly Lords quickly came to the other side of the camp and found the teams they wanted to join. This team was relatively large. There were more than 8,000 cultivators. Half of them were Taoist realm cultivators. There were also quite a number of true lords, about 3,000 of them. The other 1,000 were Heavenly Lords and Tao Lords. Heavenly Lords made up the majority of the 1,000 people. There were only about 100 Tao Lord Patriarchs who were the leaders of the teams. Wu Yang and Alai Ba were still the captains. Each of them was in charge of 1,000 people. After a few days of training, the main purpose was to familiarize themselves with the members of the team. There was also some simple coordination. The team set off. There was no mission for now. However, Wu Yang and Alai Ba both knew that the captains knew more than the members. After Wu Yang returned, Lei Xingfeng asked, "What mission is this time? Will there be a new mine to occupy?" Alai Ba laughed, "Stop dreaming. The previous clearing of the mines was our reward for occupying the mountain pass. If we didn't handle it well, it would have been very difficult to occupy 2 mines. At that time, not only would we not be rewarded, we would also be punished." Wu Yang said, "The mission this time is very simple. Clear out the places where the outsiders live." Lei Xingfeng said, "That's not simple, right?" Alai Ba explained, "It is indeed very simple. Because the outsiders live there, they're all old and weak. They don't have strong battle strength. Their strength has also been sucked dry." Wu Yang said, "They don't have the strength to fight against our army." Chapter 578. Lei Xingfeng didn't have any psychological burden towards these long-tailed outsiders. To him, these outsiders couldn't even be considered humans. Plus, too many practitioners had died in their hands. This kind of hatred was natural and didn't need to be incited. It was just like how if a practitioner was caught by an outsider, their chances of survival would be 0. Not only would they be dismembered, they might even be eaten. Lei Xingfeng said, "So it's like this? Strange, this mission is getting easier." Ning Aba smiled and said, "Perhaps on account of our contributions, he will give us an easier mission." The good thing about a large army of cultivators was that they didn't have any heavy equipment. Everything had to be carried by the person, whether it was weapons, tents, or food. With the hidden Luin space, even true masters could carry large amounts of things. The army was also different from Lei Xingfeng's army in his previous life. They didn't have a formation and moved in groups of 2s and 3s. Rather than calling it an army, it was more like a group going for an outing. Weiyang and Dalieba's teams were at the back of the group. They were walking sparsely on the road. This time, they had to pass through a secret door before they could reach the battlefield. The road was not long, and after walking for about 2 hours, they saw a huge open space. On the open space, there were 7 teleportation doors. Many teams had gathered here. The open space was filled with people. Wu Yang and Alai Ba had received the order that the secret door they had to go through was on the right side of the open space. From here, it was said that one could cross half a continent. Going through the secret door was very fast. In about an hour, it was Wu Yang and Alai Ba's turn. Lei Xingfeng followed them into the secret door. Using the secret door was the fastest way. Almost in an instant, they came out from the other side. This place was like the Gobi Desert. There weren't many plants, and the temperature was high. It was very dry. There were only some yellow weeds on the ground. There weren't any trees. It was a desolate scene. Lei Xingfeng said, "Is this where the outsiders live? It doesn't look like it. This place isn't suitable for living." Wu Yang said, "It shouldn't be here. We probably have to hurry." As expected, the group in front of them headed south. Dalaba shouted, "Keep up! Everyone keep up!" Lei Xingfeng's eyes flickered with silver light. Wu Yang asked, "Did you find anything?" Wu Yang knew about Lei Xingfeng's special skill. Whenever the silver light in his eyes flickered, it meant that he was searching for treasures. Lei Xingfeng shook his head and said, "There are some scattered ores, but it's not interesting." His vision was already very crafty. Most of the ordinary or veins did not catch his eye. Although there were some ores in this area, whether it was the quality or the grade of the materials, they were all negligible. Wu Yang said, "That's true. If this was a mining area, there would probably be outsiders guarding and excavating here." A gust of wind blew, rolling up countless stones and dust. It came crashing down, covering the sky and covering the earth. Immediately, every cultivator was covered in dust. No one bothered to use their strength to block it. Xian Feng spat a few times, spitting out the sand in his mouth. This road probably won't be easy to walk on. Strange, why isn't the place from the secret door closer? Who knows how long it'll take? Wu Yang shook his head and said, "Let's go. This kind of hardship is nothing." After walking for about half a day, they saw a green mountain range in the distance. It was not a very tall mountain range, but a continuous series of low hills, at most 400 to 500 meters tall. As they walked forward, streams appeared on the ground, flowing into the sand and quickly disappearing. However, there were green weeds and low shrubs in the surroundings, and a forest could be seen in the distance. Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "That's more like it. Residential areas always need water." Many cultivators stopped by the stream to wash up and drink some water. Someone passed down the order to reorganize the team here. According to Lei Xingfeng's suggestion, Wu Yang and Dalieba organized the team into small groups. Each group would have one Dao monarch, 2 or 4 heaven monarchs. In this way, the members would not be easily injured, and there would always be experts taking care of the subordinates. This was much more organized than a swarm of bees attacking. After the groups were organized, Wu Yang and Dalieba led the team to follow the main group and walked all the way into the mountains. The team split up. Wu Yang, Dalieba, and another team walked towards the small path from the west. The other 3 teams went to the east, and the remaining 2 teams went to the south. When they reached the starting point of the attack, the 3 teams also split up. From here, they could already see the residential area of the outsiders. They had probably scouted the area a long time ago. There were many cliffs in this area, and they weren't very high. They were no more than 300 meters high. There were many cliffs here, and they were densely packed with caves. There were metal pillars inserted into the cliffs, and the metal pillars were covered with wooden planks, forming plank paths. The 3 attacking teams also split up. Wu Yang's team was in charge of all the outsiders' residential areas in one valley, while Dalieba was in charge of the neighboring valley. Wu Yang gave the order to fight. He said, "This time, don't hold back. Just kill. Most importantly, you can fly." In a current battle, it was rare to be able to fly. This was different from one-on-one battles. Usually, large groups would attack. Once you flew high, you would become a target. Regardless of whether it was a practitioner or an outsider, their long-range attacks were very powerful. If you did not want to be focused on, you should not fly. This time, it was different. The opponents were in a residential area, and the truly powerful experts had all been taken away. Even if there were experts inside, they would only be a few kittens. They would not be a threat. Therefore, Wu Yang gave the order to fly. 1,000 people did not sound like a lot, but when gathered together, it was a large group. When Wu Yang gave the order to attack, the team split up and rushed towards the valley. As the team leader, Wu Yang did not make a move. Lei Xingfeng also did not make a move. The 2 of them still retained the habits of their hometown. They were not willing to attack weak existences. This was purely a habit. Furthermore, this kind of attack was enough. There was not much difference if there were 2 more people or 2 less people. The 2 of them were happy to slack off. Killing and arson were the same everywhere. Just like in Lei Xingfeng's previous life, as long as there was war, killing and arson were very common. Moreover, this was against outsiders. From the beginning, the practitioners showed that they could suppress everything. Wu Yang and Lei Xingfeng flew to the top of the cliff. The 2 of them quietly watched the massacre below. After a while, Wu Yang said, "I don't like this kind of massacre." Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "I don't like it either. However, I have to admit that this is an extremely effective method. Firstly, it can destroy the opponent's morale. Secondly, it can weaken the opponent's foundation. I think the Ming-Zhe alliance is very powerful. In a valley, there would occasionally be a few Heaven Monarch realm experts. However, they were all old and could not move. They would be surrounded and beaten up by the practitioners and killed in an instant. In just a short moment, the entire valley was cleared. Wu Yang immediately led the team and flew towards another valley. There were countless residential areas in this region. One valley after another was cleared. Along the way, blood flowed like a river. Wu Yang and the others did not know that this was an important residential area for the outsiders. There were only 6 or 7 such residential areas on this continent. The Ming-Zhe Alliance sent teams to kill all of them at the same time. It was an extremely painful blow to the outsiders. The more the outsiders were killed, the larger the residential areas. When they went deeper into the mountains, there were even more large-scale residential areas. In the end, a few teams worked together to kill and clean up quickly. The resistance was getting stronger and stronger. Every cultivator was showing signs of fatigue. Although not many cultivators died during the massacre, the cultivators were obviously not used to this kind of massacre. However, this discomfort was suppressed by the supervising troops who came with them. After more than 10 days of continuous massacre, there was no time to rest. Although the resistance was weak, there was still resistance. The closer they got to the end, the stronger the resistance became. However, the strength of these outsiders was too weak. They could not withstand the crushing of the cultivators' army. After killing for more than 20 days, the mission was finally completed. Everyone was extremely tired. The team retreated to the outskirts of the mountains to rest. After resting for less than a day, Lei Xingfeng felt uneasy. He found Wu Yang and said, "This is not a place to stay for long. Why don't we retreat? We only launched a sneak attack. After more than 20 days, the opponent should have gotten the information. We cannot stay here anymore." Wu Yang said helplessly, "We are not the decision makers. We cannot decide whether to retreat or not." Dalieba said, "Why don't we report this to the higher-ups?" Lei Xingfeng said, "If your base is destroyed, what will you do?" Wu Yang and Dalieba said at the same time, "Of course we will take revenge." After saying that, they could not help but look at each other. The two immediately got up and left to find the leader of the team. Lei Xingfeng could not help but smile bitterly. He guessed that the two of them would not be able to persuade much. In any case, he did not have much confidence in the Ming-Zhe Alliance. This group of people would sometimes purposely ignore some details and make some mistakes. The consequences of these mistakes would be borne by the cannon fodder. As expected, when Wu Yang and Dalieba returned, their expressions were not good. The order was to rest for 3 days. No one had expected that the Revenge Army would catch up in 3 days. Perhaps the Ming-Zhe Alliance did this on purpose. Wu Yang said, "The leader also realized this problem. Just now, he went with the 2 of us to the supervision team. They received the order to rest for 3 days. During this time, they are not allowed to leave." Lei Xingfeng's heart turned cold. This was another trap. After a while, he said, "If we are surrounded, what will happen?" Dalieba said, "We will be torn to shreds by the outsiders." Wu Yang nodded. "If I were an outsider, I would definitely take revenge in the most tragic way." Lei Xingfeng said, "No, we cannot sit here and wait for death. We have to think of a way to protect ourselves." Chapter 579. The Lai Ba said, "How do we protect ourselves? Do we set up seals?" Lei Xingfeng thought for a moment and said, "Time is a bit tight, but it's not impossible. I have ready-made seals. As long as we set them up, it will be effective." Wu Yang said, "How effective can it be? If the outsiders come, they will definitely crush us with their superior numbers." The Lai Ba said, "It's better than nothing. At least we can intimidate them and prevent them from attacking us recklessly." Wu Yang said, "Fine, a phone, let's do it. I don't feel good either. I feel like we are being used as bait." The Lai Ba said, "With our team of 2,000 people, we are too weak. We won't be of much use." Lei Xingfeng said, "Let's mobilize the team leader. I believe he doesn't want to die either." Wu Yang nodded. Yes, the team leader's expression didn't look good either. He probably realized it too. The Lai Ba, let's go again. No matter what, we have to increase our strength. Otherwise, we won't even know how we died. The Lai Ba said, "Yes, if we continue like this, we will play Ming-Zhe Alliance to death one day. We have to be smart." Although Lei Xingfeng and Wu Yang could leave at any time, they had tasted the benefits of Ming-Zhe Alliance. The two didn't want to leave. Their goal was to use Ming-Zhe Alliance as much as possible. Just by occupying a mind, Secret Sect received a lot of benefits. Therefore, the two wanted to stay and not be killed by Ming's alliance. Wu Yang and Dalai Ba went to find the team leader again. No matter what, there was a difference between being prepared and not being prepared. Qiling Changhu walked over and said, "Where did the team leader go?" Lei Xingfeng said, "He went to find the team leader." Qiling Changhu was very sensitive and said, "Did something happen?" Lei Xingfeng said, "I think we are in danger here." Qiling Changhu said, "What danger?" Lei Xingfeng said, "We have been resting for too long." He couldn't help but sigh. Qiling Changhu was puzzled. "What do you mean?" He couldn't react at all. What was the danger of resting for a long time? Lei Xingfeng said, "The foreign reinforcements should be arriving soon." Qiling Zhanghu said in shock, "Hey, then let's go quickly." Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly. "We can't leave." Qiling Changhu was puzzled. "Why can't we leave? Are there still people who won't let us go?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Ming-Zhe Alliance." Qiling Changhu gritted his teeth in hatred. Once these words came out, he understood everything. He could not help but curse in a low voice. His heart was full of helplessness. He said, "If we don't die, the Ming-Zhe Alliance will not be satisfied." Wu Yang and Lai Ba walked over with a person. Lei Xingfeng knew that person. He was the captain of this team, a mid-level Dao Lord. His name was Tades. He was very powerful. In this team, he was the strongest. Obviously, Wu Yang and Lai Ba had convinced him that the current situation was very dangerous. If they were not prepared, they would definitely suffer a great loss. Tades also had to take this seriously. Even if he was strong, he could not bear the revenge of the foreign tribes. Tades knew Lei Xingfeng and said, "Afeng, what do you plan to do?" Lei Xingfeng muttered in his heart, "What do I plan to do? This is your responsibility." He said, "Since you don't want to let us go, then we will set up seals. Let everyone take out some materials. I will make the seals." Tades said in surprise, "You are a seal master?" Lei Xingfeng said, "I know a little and have learned a little. Although I'm not very powerful, it is enough." Tades was quite surprised. Generally speaking, if one was a seal master, the Ming-Zhe Alliance would invite them to join. Basically, the Ming-Zhe Alliance had a monopoly on this kind of skill. He said, "All right, if you know how to set up seals, then we will prepare. As for the materials, I will gather them." The supervisor also gave the order to prepare for war. The team, which was originally resting, immediately became busy. Furthermore, the Ming-Zhe Alliance sent 2 seal masters to set up a large-scale defense array. They left after a day. Lei Xingfeng and the others looked on coldly. Soon, they understood that they were going to be bait. When the Ming-Zhe Alliance saw that they could not hide from the cultivators in this team, they were straightforward. They strengthened their forces, made clear their mission, set up restrictions and defensive arrays, and sent more teams. The next day, another team arrived. It was a team of 8,000 people. After they joined, there were more than 16,000 cultivators in the team. Everyone was slightly more confident. On the third day, more than 5,000 cultivators came. The Ming-Zhe Alliance sent a total of 13,000 cultivators. The total number of cultivators was more than 20,000. The changes were too fast. Lei Xingfeng was busy setting up the restriction killing array. With the defense array as cover, Tades, Wu Yang, Dalai Ba, and Lei Xingfeng discussed and decided to set up the restriction killing array in the middle of their team. It would be a trump card in times of danger. They did not report this to the Ming-Zhe Alliance. After the 2 seal masters from the Ming-Zhe Alliance finished setting up the defense array, they were immediately escorted away. The components for their restriction array were already made. They just had to set it up and activate it. It was simple and practical. They would not be like Lei Xingfeng and make the restriction killing array components on the spot. Lei Xingfeng was actually secretly collecting and refining all kinds of restriction killing array components. Many of the components of a restriction array were interconnected. They could be refined in advance and kept by one side so that one could use them at any time. Other than a few components that needed to be refined on the spot, a restriction array could be set up very quickly. Lei Xingfeng was also slowly figuring it out. With his experience on the battlefield, Lei Xingfeng started to think about how he could carry the restriction-killing array with him. Regardless of whether it was a large restriction or a small restriction, he could set them up quickly. This way, he would have a special power. As long as he was given some time to set it up, he would have an additional terrifying auxiliary weapon. Ever since Tedesco knew that Lei Xingfeng knew how to set up restriction-killing array, he would often come over to chat. He wanted to get closer to Lei Xingfeng. Everyone knew that the Mingzhe Alliance would not ignore a restriction-killing array master. Wu Yang, Dalai Ba, and Tedesco accompanied Lei Xingfeng and finished setting up the lightning restriction-killing array. The materials were gathered by the entire team. In any case, there was no reason for Lei Xingfeng to do the work and pay for it himself. No one had any complaints about this. They all knew that a restriction array was very helpful to them. This time, Lei Xingfeng set up a circular restriction-killing array. The so-called circle was an empty space of 1,000 square meters in the middle. The outer circle was a killing array. This way, if there was a crisis, the practitioners could retreat to the center of the killing array to hide. Moreover, the range of the circle was not very large. It was at most a few dozen meters wide. As long as someone entered the circle, they would be attacked by lightning. When the enemy actually entered the circle, the practitioners would be able to attack directly. This was a smaller version of the camp restriction killing array. This way, Lei Xingfeng could save a lot of materials. Lei Xingfeng set up 2 of these restriction killing arrays. One was in the middle of the team, while the other was outside the camp. It was at the border between the desert and the mountains. This was the only way to retreat. This was the result of their discussion. In their hearts, they did not have the confidence to resist the revenge of the outsiders. They needed a shelter when they retreated. This could buy them some time. The Mingzhe Alliance's defense restriction array covered a large area. Lei Xingfeng set up 2 restriction-killing arrays. One was inside the defense restriction array, while the other was outside the defense restriction array. The restriction-killing array outside was set up first. The restriction-killing array inside was only set up on the 4th day. This was done behind the back of the supervision team. The atmosphere in the camp became more and more tense. On the 4th day, the order was not to retreat, but to defend. The practitioners in the team who were used as bait understood that the next battle was unavoidable. It would be another war of attrition. Lei Xingfeng was helpless about this. If they wanted to enter the Mingzhe Alliance, they had to defend. Once he and Wu Yang slipped away, they would never be able to enter the Mingzhe Alliance again. Everyone seized the time to train and prepare their own weapons. Now, they could still enjoy the rare peace before the battle. When the outsiders arrived, they would have to fight with their lives. During this period, Lei Xingfeng spread the experience of the battle team to Terrence's team. This could increase the battle strength of the team. Lei Xingfeng would not hide his strength. He knew now that it was very difficult to rely on one's strength on the battlefield, unless you were a Monarch rank expert. But normally, Monarch rank experts would not appear. Everyone had this tacit understanding because a Monarch rank expert's destructive power was too great. It was not until the 6th day that the Outsiders team arrived. When they saw the Practitioners team, their eyes turned red. This time, the Practitioners were too ruthless in clearing out the Outsiders' residential area. It was basically a massacre. The Outsiders gathered a large number of teams and launched a revenge operation. They swore to kill all the Practitioners. Lei Xingfeng saw a black line surging out from the mountains. There were so many black dots that it was impossible to count. There were too many outsiders. All the practitioners who saw the outsiders' army felt a chill in their hearts. How many people were needed to form such a large army? Wu Yang whispered, "I wonder how many people will die this time." Lei Xingfeng said, "I can't calculate how many outsiders there are. I can't even estimate. There are too many. They probably gathered all the surrounding teams here." Dalai Ba said, "If our base was wiped out, I would also go crazy. I think that any outsiders would not be able to take it. This battle is going to be difficult." Because Terrence's team had completed the killing mission in advance, their team was placed at the back of this battle. The team at the front was made up of cultivators who had come as reinforcements. There were more than 13,000 of them, forming a battle line. This battle line was just a little behind the defensive formation. The battle instantly reached its climax. All the foreign races charged forward without fear of death. They were not prepared, nor were they in a formation. They charged forward in a straight line, like a huge wave. Wave after wave, they came crashing down. Fortunately, there was a defense formation. The outsiders who charged forward were slowed down slightly. The practitioners who stood within the defense formation attacked with all their might. Chapter 580. There was no rest, no hesitation, and no fear. Like a tide, the outsiders launched the craziest attacks. In an instant, thousands of outsiders were killed. However, the outsiders at the back didn't seem to see it at all. Wave after wave, they continued to charge at the cultivators, their mouths emitting unintelligible sounds. Very soon, the cultivators started to suffer casualties. The outsiders even used many methods to take the cultivators down with them. Their momentum was simply too strong. Even if they died, they would still take a bite out of you. The cultivators' defensive line began to waver. It was as if they would never stop. A large number of outsiders continued to charge. Because they were obstructed by the defensive formation, once they entered the formation, their movements would be greatly weakened. This made them easy targets for the cultivators. Sword seals flew, palms slapped, and all kinds of skills, such as elemental attacks, turned the front line into a death zone. A large number of outsiders died in this formless line of attack. Once they fell, their corpses would be quickly smashed into pieces by the follow-up attacks. It was truly a scene of flesh and blood flying everywhere. Lei Xingfeng and the others stood at the back. They were the backup team. Once the front line collapsed, they would be responsible for filling in. The outsiders madly attacked for half an hour. In this half an hour, 8,000 to 9,000 people died. Relying on the defensive formation, the cultivators also lost more than 1,000 people. At this time, the outsiders gradually stopped their attacks. Only a few outsiders were still charging at the cultivators with bloodshot eyes. Without a doubt, they were quickly killed by the cultivators. Lei Xingfeng let out a long sigh and said, "They've really gone crazy." Wu Yang said, "It's not good to charge without any organization. I reckon that if they retreated this time, the next battle will be difficult." After receiving the order, Tedesco's team moved forward. Wu Yang and Dalieba both cursed inwardly. This was not going to be an easy fight. They still could not activate the forbidden killing array, so they could only rely on their own strength to defend. This was because the forbidden killing array was not here, but 1,000 meters behind them. After replacing the front line, a large number of injured people retreated. At this time, the supervising team gave out healing medicines. They probably didn't expect so many outsiders to come. Their current strength was far from enough. If it weren't for the defensive formation, they probably would have collapsed in the beginning. Therefore, they didn't dare to waste too many of their own people. Every injured cultivator was given 2 healing potions. Of course, these were the lowest grade healing potions. Generally speaking, those who were lightly injured only needed one of these potions to recover in a short period of time. Those who were seriously injured would need 2 to ease their injuries. If they had a period of rest, they would be able to fully recover. Of course, this period of time might not be available. Wu Yang and Alai Ba led their own teams into the formation. There were many small teams in the 1,000-man team. Each team was responsible for a small area of the formation. Lei Xingfeng suggested that each team should have another backup team behind them. Once the front team couldn't hold on, the people behind them would step forward. If the battle wasn't intense, then they could take turns fighting. After waiting for about 2 hours, the foreign tribes launched another attack. This time, they were more organized. The outsiders gathered in groups. They could clearly see that they were divided into more than 10 teams. Lei Xingfeng bitterly smiled and said, "Actually, it's still the same. It's just wave after wave of attacks. Although there are a lot of casualties, if we don't have any courage, we won't be able to stop such a charge." Wu Yang said, "Let's hope we can hold on." Lei Xingfeng said, "Unless it's absolutely necessary, I won't make a move. Even if I do, I'll try not to use lightning. It's too eye-catching." His meaning was clear. He didn't want to attract too much attention. On the battlefield, the more impressive you were, the faster you would die. Especially Lei Xingfeng's lightning. If it turned into an electric net, it could numb a group of people. This way, the others could take advantage of the situation to kill the enemy. But if he did that, he would attract the attention of the experts among the outsiders. Once someone like him appeared, no matter how many casualties there were, the outsiders would have to kill him to be at ease. Wu Yang nodded and said, "Just use the Scarlet Aurora Sword Seal. Follow me and don't worry too much. Your mission is at the back of the formation. That's where you can show off your skills." Lei Xingfeng said, "Let's hope we don't have to use it. If we do, our team will be almost done for." The Lai boss said, "The enemy is coming." They shouted and charged. The first group of outsiders had 4,000 to 5,000 people. The moment they charged out of the formation, the second group followed. Wave after wave, they charged forward continuously. Before the first group reached the cultivator's defensive formation, there were already 3 groups behind them. Every cultivator on the defensive side had a nervous expression on their faces, and even the Tao Lord Patriarchs were no exception. They were all feeling uneasy. The enemy had too many people, and they only had 8,000 people in front of them. There was also a defensive barrier, and there was nothing else. Before the enemy had even arrived, they had already launched 4 waves of attacks. Each wave had 4,000 to 5,000 people, and the 4 waves had more than 20,000 outsiders. It looked like a dense mass of black heads, and there were also many tails that stood upright like spears. It was truly a terrifying sight. Those heads and tails rose and fell with the rise and fall of the ground. It was really like a surging wave that surged towards the cultivators. When the crowd formed by the outsiders was about 200 meters away, someone shouted, "Attack! Attack with all your might!" Countless long-range attacks flew out from the cultivators and madly struck the crowd. In the blink of an eye, over 1,000 outsiders fell to the ground. However, the crowd was still surging forward. As they shouted, they finally crashed into the defensive barrier. Because there were too many people, the entire defensive formation trembled. Then, Lei Xingfeng and the other cultivators saw the originally nimble and fierce outsiders suddenly slow down. It was as if they had crashed into a thick layer of mud. Whether it was their movements or expressions, they all slowed down. Suddenly slowing down in the middle of a battle was fatal to anyone. The cultivators in the front row immediately attacked crazily. In an instant, a layer of the outsiders who had crashed into the defensive formation were killed. Once again, blood and flesh flew everywhere, and miserable cries rang out. None of the cultivators showed mercy. At this moment, it was a life-and-death battle. Whoever showed mercy would die. Everyone attacked crazily. Lei Xingfeng's sword seal blasted out. A bloody path appeared. Wu Yang's huge palm flew out and slammed into the human wall, creating a hole. Everyone was doing their best to kill as many opponents as possible. The first group of 5,000 people was quickly killed by the cultivators. Before the cultivators could catch their breaths, the second wave of attacks arrived. The attacks made them breathless. The cultivators' strength was not endless. After a few waves of attacks, the cultivators started to show signs of fatigue. This was especially so for the Taoist and Taoist lords. Now, most of the attacks were blocked by the Taoist and Taoist lords. However, there were too few of them. Compared to the large army, the Taoist and Taoist lords were only a small part of the group. When the third wave of outsiders was killed, the fourth wave of attacks came. At this moment, the cultivators' formation started to suffer casualties. Moreover, whenever there were casualties, a large number of cultivators would fall. It was very difficult to stop them. The high-level cultivators all went up and tried their best to stop them. Even Lei Xingfeng had to use lightning. The pressure in front of him was too great. After the fourth wave of attacks was eliminated, the fifth wave came. Lei Xingfeng could not help but wail, "This is King using their lives. These outsiders have all gone mad." Just as the 8,000 cultivators were about to collapse, the supervisory team suddenly came. There were not many people in the supervisory team. There were only 600 of them. However, They were all Taoist lords. There was no lack of peak Taoist lords. This wave of reinforcements came at the right time. If there were no reinforcements, the 8,000 cultivators would have collapsed. In an instant, the battle line was stabilized. The fifth wave of outsiders was eliminated. The sixth wave came. The teams resting at the back, the Taoist and Taoist lords, all rushed up to fight. They knew that once the 8,000 cultivators collapsed, they would not be able to escape. Under their combined efforts, the sixth wave of outsiders was eliminated. Everyone's limbs were weak from the killing. Finally, the outsiders retreated. Before the seventh wave could charge forward, they heard whistling sounds in the distance. The seventh wave of outsiders turned around and retreated. Lei Xingfeng sat down and said, I killed so much that my body is weak. Wu Yang also sat down next to him. He panted and said, Awesome, awesome. I have never fought like this before. I am weak too. Many cultivators collapsed. The supervisory team was the last to come up. They shouted proudly, Don't lie down. Hurry up and cultivate. Cultivating now is the best. Lei Xingfeng and the others immediately sat up. In this battle, most of their energy was used up. Lei Yin, in particular, had used up a lot of energy. After using a bit of thunder liquid plasma and a big thunder crystal, he recovered almost immediately. This was the benefit of having treasures. If they did not have treasures, they would have to slowly absorb energy from the outside world. This kind of recovery speed was very slow. Wu Yang looked at the supervisory team in the distance and said softly, If the supervisory team did not come up this time, at least half of our team would have died. Lei Xingfeng said, I was wondering why the outsiders did not continue to attack. If they did, no one would be able to take it. Wu Yang pointed to the distance and said, See for yourself. After the two battles, the densely packed human heads and spear-like tails had dwindled significantly. Although there were still a few outsiders scattered in the distance, it was obvious that the frenzied atmosphere at the beginning was lacking. Chapter 581. Wu Yang said, If we don't retreat, the rest of the team will press on. With the supervision team, we can counterattack. Xian Feng nodded, admitting that his words made sense. Countercharging is indeed possible. But look, as he spoke, he pointed into the distance. With just a glance, Wu Yang couldn't help but curse. Are you trying to let us live? Why are there so many outsiders? From the mountainous area, large groups of outsiders poured out, densely packed like a swarm of ants. In just a short moment, the number of people was even greater than before. All the practitioners were speechless, and their faces were pale. The other side didn't even need to fight. They could drown them with a wave of people. There were too many of them. Wu Yang said, No, I have to find a supervision team. If there are no reinforcements, we are dead. He suddenly lowered his voice and said, They are dead. Once they couldn't defend, they couldn't escape. The only way was to hide in the mirror realm with Lei Xingfeng. Then, even if they died here, they wouldn't be able to interact with the Ming-Zhe alliance anymore. Lei Xingfeng said, I believe that the supervision team wants to stay alive too. Wu Yang and Alai Ba found Tadesh. The three of them went to find the supervision team. With Wu Yang and Alai Ba's status, they couldn't talk to the supervision team directly. Lei Xingfeng and Ning, Aba, sat together. Both of them were in a daze. After a while, Ning Aba said, This time, it will be hard to escape. I didn't expect to die here. The practitioners around them were all prepared to die. There was nowhere to run. The Ming-Zhe alliance didn't allow anyone to escape. This was a land of death. It would be extremely difficult to survive. Someone said, Why are we standing here like idiots? We can retreat. Yeah, why are we so stupid? Is the commander an idiot? He knew that he was going to die, but he still insisted. Are we so worthless? You are valuable, but what's the use of being valuable? Your value lies in how many outsiders you can kill. As for whether you will die or not, it's not up to those big shots to consider. There's so many practitioners anyway. Fucking bastard. Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly and said, Everyone knows that this is a land of death. Ning Abbas said, We're not fools. Anyone can see that. I just don't know what the higher-ups are thinking. After all, There are more than 20,000 people, and now there are at least 18,000 to 19,000. Why are so many cultivators giving up? Lei Xingfeng shook his head and said, let's wait for a while. There might be some news. After about an hour, Wu Yang and Dai Ba returned. Lei Xingfeng went up and said, how was it? Wu Yang said, 2 days. We have to hold on for 2 days. Lei Xingfeng could not help but smile bitterly. It was neither too long nor too short. They might be able to defend, but the casualties would be tragic. He said, what will happen in 2 days? Are there any reinforcements? Dai Ba said, it's hard to say. They only said that the mission will be completed in 2 days. Even if you open the secret door to escape, there won't be a problem. Lei Xingfeng said, if we open the secret door here, we'll be finished with a casual attack. Oh, we have the forbidden killing array, so it won't be a problem. At most, we could just give up on the forbidden killing array. With this thing as support, we can use the secret door to escape. Dai Ba said, yes, that's why I didn't say much. These 2 days won't be easy. I'm afraid that the enemy will go crazy and attack continuously. It will be hard for us to defend. Lei Xingfeng said, get everyone ready. If we can't hold on and collapse, don't panic. Take turns to cover and enter the forbidden killing array. Everyone knows where the forbidden killing array is, right? Wu Yang said, this is a life-saving place. Of course we know. Dai Ba said, I've already told everyone to keep it secret. This news cannot be leaked. If it collapses, our people will have priority. Otherwise, this place is so big that it won't be able to hold many people. Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, yes, this is a safe island. It's our last line of defense. Once the order to retreat is given, we can rely on this restriction to escape smoothly. So ensuring that our people can enter is the most important thing. Ning Aba asked, how are the arrangements for the battle on the horse? Wu Yang said, for lines of defense. Lei Xingfeng said curiously, don't joke. With our people, how can we have 4 lines of defense? It's already very difficult to have 2 lines of defense. If the first line of defense can't hold on, they will retreat to the second line of defense and take a break. The time may be very short. When the second line of defense can't hold on, they will retreat to the new line of defense behind them and take turns. According to my estimation, they can only take turns once at most. In this way, 4 lines of defense will be formed. The 4th line of defense will be formed by the combination of the 2 lines of defense. At that time, they will either complete the task in 2 days or be completely annihilated. Lei Xingfeng laughed bitterly and said, I don't have any confidence just listening to it. Dai Ba said, actually, I don't have any confidence either. This is a war of attrition. When our team is almost exhausted, we will probably have 2 days left. Even if we complete the mission, we will probably be dead. It will depend on who is lucky. Maybe we will be able to return alive. Wu Yang said, it's not that serious. To us, the chances of survival are higher. It's just that they are in trouble. He looked at the cultivators who were still resting. This time, their 2 teams were the second line of defense. If they couldn't hold on, they would retreat to the 4th line of defense. He also didn't know how many of them could return to the forbidden killing formation alive. If they could successfully retreat to the forbidden killing formation, their chances of survival would increase exponentially. Lei Xingfeng said, try to organize well. The chances of survival are higher if we have order than if we don't. Wu Yang said, according to the way you organize the teams, their fighting power has indeed increased by a lot. Also, with the help of experts, the casualties will be much lower than other teams. Yes, there's not enough time. I can't remind them again. As long as they follow the previous plan, I believe they will be fine. At this time, someone urged the teams to enter the second line of defense. Wu Yang and Dai Ba's teams arrived at the second line of defense. Actually, the second line of defense was only 100 meters away from the first line of defense. To cultivators, this was a distance that could be crossed in a few breaths of time. It was really close. There were close to 10,000 cultivators at the first line of defense. The second line was about the same. Lei Xingfeng understood at a glance that this was a battle of attrition. The outsiders relied on their numbers, while the cultivators relied on their strength and the help of a defensive formation. The outsiders were still gathering. Large numbers of outsiders poured out of the mountains. Their numbers quickly recovered to their original numbers. However, they still didn't stop. Large numbers were still pouring out of the mountains. Lei Xingfeng said, "This is simply despairing. There's no end to it. How many troops do the outsiders need before it's over?" Wu Yang said, "They want to defeat us in one fell swoop. Then they'll start their crazy revenge." The cultivators' morale was quite low because their opponents were still increasing their numbers. Originally, each of them had to deal with 2 or 3 people. Now, they had to deal with 5 or 6 people. They couldn't escape. If they fought, there was almost no hope of winning. All the cultivators were suffering. No one wanted to fight this battle. However, they had no choice. Lei Xingfeng watched coldly from the sidelines. He knew that things weren't going well. He said, "Our mission is to hold on for half a day. I think it's going to be difficult. Let alone half a day, even a few hours will be difficult. No one has the resolve to fight to the death." Wu Yang shook his head slightly. He said, "They're all transferred from different sections. They're not familiar with each other and don't have the spirit of unity. Our team is better. After all, we've been working together for a while and have been divided into small groups. As for the other teams, who knows?" The battle started after more than an hour. The outsiders once again made use of their advantage in numbers and pressed forward wave after wave. This time, the cultivators of the first line of defense clearly lost their drive. After fighting for more than 2 hours, they collapsed and retreated like the tide. Lei Xingfeng, Wu Yang, and Daily Aba's expressions all changed. Lei Xingfeng shouted, "Don't let them attack the team." The supervisory team also shouted, forcing the cultivators to turn back and fight. They killed many of the retreating cultivators and attacked the outsiders at the same time. However, there were too few people in the supervisory team. In a few seconds, the cultivators at the first line of defense had reached the second line of defense. No matter what, they couldn't let the defeated cultivators attack the second line of defense. Hence, Terence didn't hesitate to give the order to attack. Instantly, there were cries of agony. Both the outsiders and the retreating cultivators fell in large numbers. At this moment, at least half of the 10,000 cultivators died. Some of them saw that something was wrong and could only turn back to fight. They were immediately drowned in the tide of outsiders. Before the cultivators at the first line of defense could retreat to the third line of defense, more than half of them had died. Only a few heaven monarchs and Tao lords were still fighting. After all, their strengths were different. As for the cultivators below the heaven monarch realm, most of them were either dead or injured. The battle quickly became white-hot. Due to the powerful strength of the heaven monarchs and Tao lords, they quickly entered the second line of defense. They couldn't rest at all. They could only grit their teeth and continue fighting to strengthen the second line of defense. The supervisory team also joined the second line of defense. At this moment, it didn't matter whether they were supervising or not. Once they lost, they couldn't escape either. Due to the addition of the heaven monarchs and Tao lords and the supervisory team's Tao lord patriarchs, the entire second line of defense was stabilized. These cultivators were all fighting with their lives. Seeing the heavy casualties at the first line of defense, they didn't have any thoughts of escaping. Their only thought was to kill all the outsiders in front of them. On Lei Xingfeng's side, the combat teams were fighting fiercely and supporting each other. Wu Yang and the other Tao Lord Patriarchs were the rescue team. Where things weren't going well, they would rush there to help. Chapter 582. In less than 4 hours, the second battle line was also on the verge of collapse. There were simply too many of them. Lei Xingfeng could only feel countless tails lashing at him. Countless outsiders were pouncing on him. Every outsider looked as though they didn't care about their lives. Even he was terrified to the extreme. The cultivators couldn't maintain their footing and were retreating bit by bit. Fortunately, the efforts of the Tao Lord and the Heaven Monarch barely prevented the entire battle line from collapsing. A large number of outsiders died on the front line during the charge. The entire battle line was in chaos. Countless outsiders and cultivators fell. Once they fell, there was almost no hope of survival. Tails were lashing everywhere, and sword seals were flying everywhere. Lei Xingfeng suffered a few heavy blows. He had the urge to vomit blood. Fortunately, he had plenty of recuperation medicine and antidotes. For now, there wasn't much of a problem. Wu Yang was also injured. Almost none of the cultivators were lucky enough to escape. Everyone was injured. Dalieba was attacking wildly. He was also attacked by a group of people and couldn't dodge at all. He could only rely on his defense to block. He had already drunk 2 bottles of recuperation medicine. Unfortunately, he only used low-grade recuperation medicine and could only temporarily suppress his injuries. Ning Eba followed closely behind Wu Yang and Lei Xingfeng. They formed a battle triangle and moved back and forth. His injuries were much lighter. Because he had mid-grade recuperation medicine, there wasn't much of a problem for now. They kept retreating. In just 2 hours, they had already retreated to the 3rd battle line. However, no one came to replace them. They could only struggle bitterly. At this point, the entire defense restriction was on the verge of collapse. Once the restriction was broken, the pressure on the cultivators would be even greater. Lei Xingfeng didn't know how many outsiders he had killed. Every time he sent out a sword seal, he would be able to carve out a bloody path. However, the outsiders were still charging fearlessly. They weren't afraid of death at all. In such a state, even if the outsiders weren't strong enough, they could still suppress the cultivators in terms of their aura. Some cultivators had been suppressed, which was why they had been pounced on by a group of outsiders and torn to shreds. The outsiders not only used their tails to attack, but they also used their teeth. That kind of desperation made every cultivator's heart tremble. Wu Yang and Lei Xingfeng kept shouting as the team slowly retreated. Not far behind them was the killing array. Wu Yang, Lei Xingfeng, and Dalieba consciously led the team in this direction. Suddenly, someone shouted from afar, "We lost, we lost." Before he could shout a second time, he was slapped to death by a Dao Lord Patriarch who was supervising the team. However, the group of cultivators there had completely collapsed. Lei Xingfeng saw that the situation was not good. He said, "Let's speed up and retreat. Don't panic, don't panic." The group of Dao Lord Patriarchs did their best to maintain order. They all knew that once chaos broke out and they lost their organization, they would be easily torn to shreds by the outsiders. Not everyone was rational. Once the people around them started retreating, it would be impossible to hold on even if you wanted to. In an instant, a few large gaps appeared. The outsiders rushed in crazily and tried to cut the group of cultivators apart. Lei Xingfeng saw that something was wrong. He immediately said to Wu Yang, "Quick, give the order to retreat. Otherwise, it will be too late." They were only 100 meters away from the killing array. However, it was not easy to retreat like this. Wu Yang ordered a few groups to take turns to charge forward and reduce the pressure of retreating. He said, "Afeng, retreat into the restriction circle first. Be prepared to activate it at any time. Go, go." Lei Xingfeng grabbed Ning Yaba and said, "Let's go." The two of them turned and ran. Dalieba said, "Send a few groups to form a simple defensive line at the edge of the restriction." Dozens of cultivators turned and ran. Dalieba shouted, "Everyone stay calm. Whether or not you can survive depends on your actions. If you don't want to die, don't run around." The large group of people retreated slowly with difficulty. They could not be too fast. If they were too fast, there would definitely be trouble. The surroundings were already in chaos. As the defensive line had been breached, even the inspection team could not do anything. They could only gather a small group of cultivators and resist with all their might. This was the time to fight for their lives. Both sides were fighting for their lives. Many people died. Many outsiders and cultivators perished together. Those who were able to just barely hold on were at least at the celestial monarch level of power. They were incredibly strong and capable of fighting for a very long time, but every single one of them knew in their hearts that they wouldn't be able to maintain this state for long. Sooner or later, they would run out of energy. Slowly, The celestial monarchs and Tao lords began to suffer casualties. Often, dozens or even hundreds of outsiders would surround and attack these celestial monarchs or Tao lords. Lei Xingfeng had already reached the restriction circle. He started to shout and said, "Set up a defensive circle immediately. Quick, everyone who retreated here, set up a defensive circle immediately." Someone had already begun to guide them. This was something that had been arranged beforehand. Anyone who retreated into the restrictive perimeter would immediately be arranged into the inner perimeter of the restrictive perimeter, forming a circular defensive perimeter around the perimeter. Some of the heavenly monarch experts and quite a few Tao Lord patriarchs could tell that this was different. This was because if they formed a circular defensive perimeter, they would at least be able to struggle at death's door. Even though they didn't know that this was a restrictive perimeter, they were still drawn over and joined in. Quite a number of Tao Lord patriarchs from the supervisory squads also retreated into the restrictive perimeter. Their rallying power was very strong, and quite a number of Tao Lord patriarchs followed them. Gradually, the inner perimeter of the restrictive perimeter was filled with cultivators, forming a new line of defense. Next, Wu Yang's squad retreated, followed by a large group of outsiders. With the support of the Tao monarch patriarchs, everyone worked together to temporarily stabilize the inner circle of the restriction circle. Most of the outsiders were blocked outside the inner circle of the restriction circle. In other words, these outsiders were all within the restriction killing array. The defensive circle formed here protected many cultivators. Wu Yang and Alai Ba's team only had a few hundred people left. Most of them had died outside. When Wu Yang and Alai Ba's team entered, they heard Wu Yang shout, "A phone! Activate it quickly!" At this time, countless outsiders were swarming over. The only thing that could form a resistance was this restriction circle. The other cultivators were all fighting on their own, so they could not pose a threat. However, this defensive circle had more than 2,000 people gathered here, so it became a huge target. There were still people fighting with the outsiders in the restriction circle. Lei Xingfeng did not care so much and immediately activated the restriction killing array. In an instant, countless lightning bolts appeared out of nowhere. The rumbling thunder suddenly exploded. The sound of the thunder was simply shocking. Boom, boom, boom. Thunder crackled within the restriction circle as blinding lightning bolts crazily fell. The people in the inner circle of the restriction circle were all frightened when they saw the scene in front of them. The might of lightning kill was extremely shocking, especially after it was amplified by the restriction. Of course, this was also related to what was placed in the restriction. For example, if Xian Feng had only placed lightning liquid plasma, then the lightning wouldn't be as fierce and would be much weaker. However, Xian Feng had placed a large lightning crystal, and if he had a lightning attribute spirit item, then this lightning would be different from lightning. Its might would be increased by at least 10 to 100 times, depending on what spirit item it was. Even spirit items had differences in strength. In order to save his life, Lei Xingfeng had placed 10 big thunder crystals. He had activated them to the maximum from the start. This level of restriction killing array would consume one big thunder crystal every 10 minutes. If Lei Xingfeng did not have a lot of big thunder crystals on hand, this level of consumption would be enough to make his heart ache. In less than 3 minutes, all the outsiders and cultivators in the restriction killing array were killed by the lightning bolts. Other than a few Tao Lord patriarchs, the entire restriction killing array was filled with smoke and dust. Everyone who could not withstand the lightning bolts were bombarded and turned into ashes. Lei Xingfeng stopped the restriction killing array. Instantly, the surroundings fell silent. Both the cultivators and the outsiders were frightened. There were more than 3,000 outsiders in the restriction circle, but only a few outsiders in red armor survived. There were also a few old guys from the supervision team. The rest had all disappeared. This attack was too sharp. Not only were the outsiders frightened, but many people from the supervision team were also shocked and frightened. The power of this killing array was completely exposed. This exposed a problem. Who was the restriction master who set up this restriction? The supervision team did not know about such a powerful restriction master. One had to know that restriction masters and alchemists had a very high status in the Mingzhe alliance. They were not inferior to the supervision team. Sometimes the supervision team would even ask for alchemists and restriction masters. With such a powerful restriction master, it meant that it would not be a big problem to hold on for 2 days. Lei Xingfeng could no longer keep a low profile this time. He decided to be high profile and shouted, "Maintain the defensive circle. When the enemy attacks, don't take the initiative to attack. Otherwise, don't blame me if you are implicated by the restriction." The cultivators discussed in low voices. However, when they found out that this restriction was set up by Lei Xingfeng, everyone's eyes were filled with respect. Even the Tao Lord Patriarchs were the same. Wu Yang whispered, "A Feng, you are famous." Lei Xingfeng said, "It doesn't matter if I am famous or not. Let's save our lives first." The outsiders stopped attacking and just surrounded the restriction circle. They were not stupid. If they used a wave of people again, the losses would be terrifying. The Tao Lord Patriarchs did their best to break out of the encirclement of outsiders, and the Tao Lord Patriarchs of the supervisory squad immediately charged out to assist them. As soon as they entered the restrictive circle, the outsiders chasing after them came to a halt. They knew that they couldn't enter the restrictive circle. The Tao Lord Patriarchs were covered in blood. All of them were seriously injured. They were helped to the center of the restriction circle and sat down. One by one, they took healing medicine. Lei Xingfeng noticed that they were taking high-grade healing medicine. As long as they took this medicine, they would be able to recover after a short rest. Lei Xingfeng also knew that it was good stuff. It seemed like only the supervision team had it. Chapter 583. In an instant, the cultivators outside were completely wiped out by the outsiders. Only a few extremely powerful Tao Lord Patriarchs managed to escape with the help of the people in the restriction circle. At this time, there were less than 2,500 people left in the restriction circle. The rest had all died in battle. Most of the 2,500 people were heavenly lords and Tao Lord Patriarchs. Only a few were at the perfected lord level. As for the perfected human level cultivators, not a single one was left. Lei Xingfeng looked at the distant mountains and saw that the outsiders were still pouring out. He said, "There's actually a large group of outsiders coming out. How many are they coming this time?" A Tao Lord Patriarch said, "No less than 200,000. We estimate that there are more than 300,000. There are still many in the mountains who haven't come out." 200,000? 300,000? Lei Xingfeng said in disbelief, "Don't joke. How many people do we have? We only have 20,000, and they're coming with 200,000 to 300,000? Are they out of their minds?" The Tao Lord said indifferently, "We destroyed their homes and destroyed their foundation. I wouldn't be surprised if there were more people." Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly. "What's there to play? Even if we have the restriction killing array, we can't stop so many people." The Tao Lord Patriarch laughed. 2 days should be enough. By the way, did you set up this restriction killing array? Lei Xingfeng said, "Yes. In order to save my life, I had to set it up first. Otherwise, I would already be dead." Lei Xingfeng was still staring into the distance at the densely packed outsiders. The Tao Lord Patriarch said, "I couldn't tell that you're a restriction master. Haha, little guy, not bad." Lei Xingfeng found that the Tao Lord Patriarch's tone was not right. He sounded very appreciative. He thought to himself, "Who is this guy? How strange." The nearby Titus said, "A Feng, this is the captain of the supervisory squad, a Zega. He's a supreme Tao Lord." No wonder he didn't say anything. He really was a big shot. Lei Xingfeng hurriedly turned around and saw a middle-aged man smiling at him. This man had thick eyebrows, big eyes, and long black hair. At first glance, he had an extraordinary aura. However, this man had a pair of eye-catching protruding ears that instantly ruined his image. His originally dignified aura suddenly seemed comical. However, Lei Xingfeng didn't dare to mock him. This guy was a peaked Tao Lord Patriarch. He could probably crush him to death with just a finger. Lei Xingfeng said, "Greetings, Captain Azega." Azega waved his hand and said, "You're welcome. Since we're all together, let's fight for our lives together." He wouldn't give the order to retreat now. It wasn't easy for him to find a chance to delay the outsiders, so how could he give it up? Lei Xingfeng thought for a moment and said, 2 days. Can we retreat after 2 days? Azega smiled and said, "This time, I promise." The surrounding cultivators immediately heaved a sigh of relief. With the protection of the killing formation, they thought that 2 days would be easy to pass. Lei Xingfeng looked at the outsiders in the distance and smiled bitterly. 2 days. I was confident before, but now I can't say for sure. Azega asked why. Lei Xingfeng said, restrictions need energy. Once they run out of energy, the restrictions will be useless. This is especially true for killing formations. Not only do they consume energy, but they also consume restriction components. If they aren't used at a high intensity, 2 years won't be a problem, let alone 2 days. Now, it's hard to say. It depends on the strength of the outsiders. The outsiders stopped attacking for a moment. They seemed to be discussing how to attack. The cultivators here seized the time to heal and rest. This was a rare opportunity. As long as cultivators had a chance to rest, they could recover their strength very quickly. Moreover, this place was very suitable for cultivation. Every cultivator knew that the killing formation wouldn't last long. The outsiders wouldn't give up until they were all killed. A large number of outsiders rushed over and surrounded the killing formation layer by layer. Soon, the outsiders attacked again. This time, there were only a few hundred of them, and they only charged in one direction. They roared and rushed into the killing formation. Lei Xingfeng didn't activate the killing formation. If he activated it for a few hundred people, then it wouldn't last long. Azega clearly understood. He said, "A phone, don't be in a hurry to activate it. We have enough people to resist." The entire battle entered a state of attrition. The outsiders weren't stupid. They sent a few hundred people into the formation to kill, and the cultivators took turns to resist. After half a day, the outsiders stopped the battle again. They quickly understood that they couldn't gain any advantage. Moreover, the cultivators were much stronger. Every time a few hundred people went in, only a few of them could return alive. Of course, they couldn't hold on. Finally, the outsiders couldn't wait any longer. It was obvious that the outsiders were in a commotion. Probably because their hometown was destroyed and their loved ones were killed, most of them were in a half-crazy state. Even though they knew it was dangerous, they weren't willing to let the cultivators live for a moment longer. Soon, groups of outsiders prepared to attack. This time, there were about 1,000 of them, and they were still attacking in one direction. No matter what, they didn't want the outsiders to activate the killing formation. If there were fewer people, the outsiders would use up energy every time they activated the formation. What the outsiders wanted to do was to exhaust the cultivators in the killing formation. If they activated the killing formation, then they would exhaust the energy of the killing formation. They roared and rushed in, and another round of battle began. The cultivators standing in the restriction circle were all Heaven Monarch and Dao Lord experts. They killed many outsiders in a short period of time. Lei Xingfeng stood beside Azega. As for Wu Yang and Alai Ba, they went to the front to fight. Gradually, more and more outsiders entered the killing formation. It wasn't that their commanders didn't understand, but that their commanders couldn't control their subordinates. They couldn't wait to see their subordinates rushing in. When the outsiders couldn't help but rush in from all directions, Lei Xingfeng immediately activated the killing formation. After a full 5 minutes, all the outsiders in the killing formation were killed. The moment the killing formation was stopped, the outsiders didn't hesitate to fill up the restriction circle again. Lei Xingfeng was speechless. He had no choice but to activate the killing formation again and again. The big thunder crystals in the core of the restriction circle were being used up quickly. It was already late at night, but the attacks of the outsiders did not slow down at all. They continued to attack the restriction circle one after another. Every cultivator was exhausted. The only time they could rest was when the restriction killing formation was fully activated. Only then would they have time to take a breather and drink the healing medicine. When the sky turned bright, Lei Xingfeng found Wu Yang and the others. He said, "The big thunder crystals are almost used up. Even if I use them sparingly, they are useless." Ning, ABA said, "Can we use more thunder crystals?" Xian Feng shook his head. This time it was designed to be a one-time use. After using up all the big thunder crystals, such a powerful lightning kill, the restriction components will also be destroyed. Therefore, we don't have much time left. We only have 2 more chances to activate the killing formation. Ning, ABA was dumbfounded. Activating the killing formation twice was useless. As long as the time passed, they would have nothing to rely on. Azega's expression changed slightly. He said, "Only 2 chances? That's troublesome. Unless it's a last resort, don't activate it. We will fight for now." Lei Xingfeng said, "Wait a minute, Master Azega. I still have another killing formation. It's less than 1,000 meters away from here. It's right behind us." Azega was stunned. He said in disbelief, "There's another killing formation?" Xian Feng said embarrassedly, "That's right, back then I felt that it wasn't safe enough, so I set up 2, but this one is a bit stronger while the one behind is a bit weaker. Its power is also weaker." Azega nodded and said, "Let me arrange it." Lei Xingfeng had an idea. He said, "Master Azega, I need to protect 3 people. If we move, I want you to bring them with you." Azega praised in his heart. This person was definitely smart. He said, "Who are they?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Wu Yang, Dalaiba, Ning, ABA. They are my companions." Other than Ning, ABA, Azega knew everyone. Ning, ABA was beside him. He looked at Lei Xingfeng gratefully and said, "I am Ning, ABA." Azega said, "Okay, I got it. Wait for my news." Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "Okay, I will listen to your orders." The deal was made. It was not easy to retreat from here to the killing formation behind. If there was no one to protect him, he really didn't have the confidence to rush over. There were too many outsiders. If he was trapped, he wouldn't be able to escape. He wouldn't even have time to enter the mirror world, let alone open the secret door. Azega still had nearly 400 subordinates remaining, all of whom were Downlord Patriarchs. He had lost nearly 200 of his subordinates as well. According to Azega's plan, only the Downlord Patriarchs had the ability to break out of the encirclement. The others could give up. Of course, Azega would not say that. He had dozens of Dao Lord Patriarchs protecting him and 3 or 4 others. He did not feel any pressure at all. The attacks of the outsiders were still as crazy as ever. They simply weren't affected by the heavy casualties. They were like a group of people who didn't know what death was. Groups after groups of people rushed into the killing array. In just a single day, tens of thousands of people had been killed by the killing array. As for the big thunder crystals that were the most critical to the operation of the killing array, they had nearly been consumed. There was only 1 big thunder crystal left, and it was about to be used up. Azega quickly found Wu Yang and Dalaiba. Lei Xingfeng whispered, "Don't talk. Wait for us to break through." Wu Yang understood and said, "Move to the second killing formation." Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "We have to rely on the strength of the supervising team. Otherwise, we will not be able to pass." Dalaiba looked at Lei Xingfeng gratefully. He knew that Lei Xingfeng had helped. The final attack was about to arrive. Chapter 584. There was only one last chance left to activate the killing formation. Once it was activated, the entire formation would completely collapse and would no longer be able to function. The cultivators would be completely exposed to the outsiders. At that time, there would only be a mere 2,000 people left. There was no doubt that they would be overwhelmed by the outsiders' army. No matter how strong they were at that time, they would not be able to escape. Lei Xingfeng, Wu Yang, Dalaiba, and Ning, ABA were all standing beside Azega. They listened to Azega's orders. "When the formation collapses, listen to my command. I need everyone to attack together and open up a path. Remember, there aren't many chances. Attack with all your might." Everyone nodded and prepared themselves. If they wanted to escape, they would have to work hard. At this time, everyone knew that at this critical moment, everyone had to do their best. The outsiders were also trying their best to use their lives to wear down the formation. They also knew that the formation could not be activated continuously. At a certain point, the formation would definitely collapse. This was especially so for a formation that had been hastily set up. Otherwise, they would not have been using their lives to wear down the formation. However, the outsiders did not know that the formation was about to collapse. They were still sending wave after wave of attacks. If they knew that the formation was about to collapse, they would definitely launch an all-out attack. Just this point alone put the outsiders at a disadvantage. Therefore, after activating the formation for the last time and eliminating the outsiders who had entered, the entire killing formation collapsed. Scattered lightning even shot out from the formation and killed the surrounding outsiders. Even Lei Xingfeng was shocked when he saw the final explosion of the killing formation. Just as the forbidden killing formation was about to collapse and the lightning bolts were about to strike, Azeka shouted, "Attack!" Hundreds of Dao Lord Patriarchs attacked at the same time. In an instant, they formed a large-scale attack. Just as they attacked, Azeka roared, "Charge!" The team within the formation charged out crazily. Everyone's body flashed with a defensive light, and they were extremely fast. With a loud bang, they crashed into the outsiders. Azeka was a supreme Dao Lord Patriarch, and his power was nothing to scoff at. As the arrowhead of the charge, his role was to open up a path for the enemy. Once he focused his firepower on them, the outsiders wouldn't be able to react at all. Any outsider caught in the path of his firepower would be blasted to smithereens. Naturally, a path would appear, but this path would be made from flesh and blood. Lei Xingfeng, Wu Yang, Dalieba, and Ning, the ABA followed closely behind Azeka. The remaining cultivators followed closely behind them. Everyone knew that as long as they reached the second formation, they could live for at least one more day. This flood of Dao Lord Patriarchs was simply too powerful. Caught off guard, the outsiders were forced to open a path. In just a few breaths of time, the outsiders reacted and attacked like crazy. Knowing that the other party was trying to break out of the encirclement, a large number of outsiders swarmed over. Lei Xingfeng was behind Azeka. He shouted, "Attack from the left." Azeka struck out with his palm, and his body shot out. His palm was only as tall as two people. When he pushed it out horizontally, the outsiders blocking the path were sent flying. A distance of 1,000 meters, with Azeka's full-strength attacks and mad sprinting, it only took a dozen seconds to cover. However, this place was still filled with outsiders. Xin Feng shouted, "It's here! Clear the area!" In the blink of an eye, the Dao Lord Patriarchs quickly formed into a small circle, then began to attack outwards. When the Dao Lord Patriarchs unleashed their full power, there was no way for the outsiders to resist at all. As more and more Dao Lord Patriarchs entered the fray, they grew increasingly powerful, causing the defense of the entire circle to grow increasingly solid. Under the protection of Wu Yang, Dalieba, and the others, Lei Xingfeng quickly found the core of the formation. He said, "Have our people come in? How many are there? Get them to speed up." If the cultivators behind could not catch up and Lei Xingfeng activated the killing formation, they would all be finished. At this time, every combat power was very important. They had to save as many as they could. Azeka turned back and started to rescue the people behind. Some of the cultivators at the back knew that they could not break through. In despair, someone shouted, "Let's fly together!" About 100 cultivators flew up together and crazily charged forward. These people were immediately attacked by the outsiders. If they ran, they wouldn't be able to increase their speed due to the outsiders blocking them. But this was such a short distance. If they flew, it would only take them a few breaths of time. Even if they were attacked by the outsiders, most of them managed to escape and enter the restrictions. Seeing that everyone who could escape had entered the restriction circle, and those who could not escape had no hope of catching up, these scattered cultivators could not be rescued. Lei Xingfeng did not hesitate to activate the killing formation. When the sound of thunder suddenly appeared, a dazzling brilliance flashed. Streaks of lightning fell like raindrops. The foreign clansmen were suddenly in a panic. It should be known that there were more foreign clansmen surrounding the cultivators than before. They were densely packed with human heads and raised tails. The light on their armor had also reached a terrifying number. The most frightening thing was that they were all tightly surrounding the cultivators in order to block the crazy attacks of the cultivators. This kind of formation could maximize the lethality of the lightning attacks to the greatest extent. Some of the cultivators were also within the range of the lightning. However, they only needed to take a few steps back to get out. It was difficult for the outsiders. If they retreated, they would be surrounded by their companions. If they advanced, they would be surrounded by the cultivators. Therefore, they could only accept the baptism of the lightning. In an instant, a large number of the low-level outsiders were killed by the lightning. Those who were left were relatively strong. However, as the lightning continued to fall, the crowd of outsiders began to thin out. Only heaven monarchs and Tao monarchs were left. Lei Xingfeng was ruthless this time. He wanted to teach the outsiders a painful lesson. Therefore, he directly paid the price of a big thunder crystal to maximize the effectiveness of a lightning kill formation. Even Azega had never seen such a perverted lightning killing restriction formation. After all, his cultivation base was extremely high, so he could clearly see the foreign tribesmen in the restriction formation. Seeing the foreign tribesmen being turned into ashes by the lightning, he was extremely shocked. This thing was quite perverted. Out of more than 2,000 people, only about 1,600 managed to reach the killing array. The rest were either killed or trapped among the outsiders. In just a few minutes, they were all dead. There was only one outcome for those who were left alone, and that was death. Ning Aba looked outside with lingering fear. This time, if not for Lei Xingfeng's help, he was sure that he would not be able to keep up with the group. He would definitely die on the way. This attack had completely stunned the outsiders. They had never thought that there would be a killing formation. Moreover, this attack had caused them to suffer heavy casualties. Not to mention the people who had been killed along the way. Just the killing formation alone had killed at least 5,000 people. As for the injured outsiders, there were even more. When the lightning stopped, the billowing smoke gradually dissipated. Large patches of charred corpses were left behind on the ground. Those were the corpses left behind by the last of the outsiders. As the lightning did not have time to turn them into ashes, it completely stopped. Under the full power of the big thunder crystal, it was used up in 2 minutes. The result was that more than 5,000 people were killed. The outsiders were frightened and began to retreat. Lei Xingfeng said, "What a pity! What a pity!" Azega smiled. This result was out of his expectations. He did not expect the formation to be so powerful. He asked, "What's a pity?" Lei Xingfeng said, "It's a pity that we have too few people. If we had more people, we could use the momentum to kill our way out. Although we would not be able to make them retreat, we would definitely cause great damage to them." Azega said, "It is indeed a pity. However, it is already very good for us to have achieved this result." Lei Xingfeng said, "I don't know how long we can last. If the formation collapses this time, we will have no one to rely on." Azega smiled and said, "Don't worry. We will be free soon." When the surrounding people heard Azega's words, they heaved a sigh of relief. The real commander here was actually him. Moreover, all the communication with the Mingzhe alliance was also done by him. No one was more informed than him. As the news gradually spread, the morale of the remaining cultivators increased to a certain extent. Being able to return alive was their greatest wish. The Outlanders stopped attacking, but they didn't retreat. They just surrounded them from a distance. Even if the Outlanders had the advantage in numbers, they still couldn't bear the losses. From the beginning of the battle until now, the Outlanders had suffered heavy casualties. Fortunately, they still had reinforcements. More and more Outlanders were coming out of the mountain pass. In addition to the dead Outlanders, there were still more than 300,000 Outlanders. They were densely packed with Outlanders. Everyone was at peace with each other. This situation gave everyone some time to catch their breath. They all understood that with the heavy casualties of the outsiders, their desire for revenge must be extremely strong. This was only the calm before the battle. The next attack would not be so easy. It would definitely be an endless barrage of attacks until they were defeated and killed. What the outsiders didn't know was that after 2 days, these cultivators could open the secret door and leave. With the protection of the forbidden killing array, the outsiders couldn't interfere with the opening of the secret door. The reason why they were still here was mainly because of the orders of the Ming-Zhe alliance, not because they couldn't leave. There was still half a day left. Lei Xingfeng checked the formation and replaced a few of its components before sitting down to rest. Wu Yang asked in a low voice, "How is it?" Lei Xingfeng said in a low voice, "Yes, it has attracted the attention of the Ming-Zhe alliance. I believe that they will come to recruit us soon." Wu Yang patted Lei Xingfeng's shoulder and said, "Very good. Once you join, we have to keep in touch." Chapter 585. Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "I managed to escape this time. Patriarch, once I join the Ming-Zhe alliance, you have to think of a way to leave. This place is simply too dangerous." Wu Yang didn't express his opinion and said, "Let's wait and see. I will not leave unless I have no other choice." Lei Xingfeng knew that Wu Yang still wanted to find out more about the situation. This would be very beneficial to the development of the secret sect. Azega had already reported Lei Xingfeng's situation to the Ming-Zhe alliance. He was a lightning-type heaven monarch and had the talent to design restrictions. Furthermore, he used the restriction killing array to kill a large number of outsiders. All these contributions were reported. The Ming-Zhe alliance might not pay much attention to cultivators with the strength of Dao monarchs, but it was completely different for a restriction master or alchemist. They had plenty of high-end combat strength, but restriction masters and alchemists were rather rare. Every one of them was very precious. The restriction ability that Lei Xingfeng displayed was something that the Ming-Zhe alliance wanted to obtain. Hence, Azega received the order to protect Lei Xingfeng and escort him to the Ming-Zhe alliance after the battle. Azega came to Lei Xingfeng's side, sat down, and said, "Afeng, are you interested in going to the Ming-Zhe alliance's restriction main hall? You can learn a lot of knowledge about restrictions there." Lei Xingfeng didn't even consider as he nodded and said, "Yes, I am interested." Azega smiled slightly. He had never doubted that as long as the Ming-Zhe alliance recruited any sex cultivators, they would all agree. This was a difference between heaven and earth. He said, "Very good. During the battle, you have to follow me closely." His meaning was very clear: protect at all times. Lei Xingfeng knew that he could finally sneak into the Ming-Zhe alliance. Furthermore, he should be considered to have escaped from this strange war. He actually wasn't very interested in invading the great continent. This wasn't his war. Of course, this didn't stop him from reaping the benefits. Wu Yang's eyes flashed with a trace of excitement. He was more interested in the Ming-Zhe alliance than Lei Xingfeng. It could be said that the Ming-Zhe alliance was a colossus in the outer domain. Although he didn't know the status of the Ming-Zhe alliance, he knew that his secret sect couldn't be compared to the Ming-Zhe alliance. The difference between the two was too great. His mission was to borrow the strength of the Ming-Zhe alliance to develop his secret sect. Now that he could enter the Ming-Zhe alliance, it would be a huge victory. Huge victory. Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "All right. However, Lord Azega, our mission still has half a day. If the outsiders keep attacking, this killing formation won't last long." This killing formation wasn't as simple as the one before. Otherwise, he wouldn't have used all his strength to activate it. If it wasn't for his activation, it wouldn't have been able to kill so many outsiders. Azega stood up and said, "It's about time." Lei Xingfeng also stood up and asked curiously, "What do you mean it's about time?" Azega pointed at the path they came from and said, "Our people are here." Many cultivators heard this and stood up. There were even some cultivators who flew up a few meters to watch. A black line appeared. Lei Xingfeng's eyesight was extremely good. He could clearly see the dense crowd. This time, It wasn't outsiders, but a large number of cultivators. Azagas said, "Our mission to lure the enemy has been completed ahead of time." The outsiders were in chaos. There were cultivators on all three sides. It was unknown how many of them there were. They were like ants rushing towards the mountain. The scale was much larger than when the outsiders came out of the mountain. Lei Xingfeng sucked in a breath of cold air and said, "How many people are there?" Azaga lightly said, "Altogether, it's no less than 1,000,000 soldiers." Suddenly, the mountain area was in chaos. Countless outsiders came out of the mountain forest. Following that, large amounts of smoke and dust rose. Lei Xingfeng knew that this was the smoke and dust from the attacks. Faint sounds of thunder could be heard. Lei Xingfeng knew that it wasn't thunder, but the sound of explosions. These explosions gradually merged together and rumbled. Lei Xingfeng suddenly understood. He said, "These outsiders are surrounded?" Azagas said, "Yes, we've been waiting for this moment. I didn't expect the outsiders to be so easily provoked. Haha, this time, at least a portion of their forces will be lost." Lei Xingfeng said, "We've completed our mission. Can we leave now?" Azaga laughed and said, "Yes, we can leave now. But before we leave, we still have a mission to complete." Lei Xingfeng was stunned. He said, "There's a mission?" Azaga said, "Of course, there's one more mission. The last mission will be launched when the army attacks." Lei Xingfeng's heart turned cold. He said, "Are we working together? We have too few people." Azaga said, "There's no need for us to go. There's another team." Lei Xingfeng looked around and said, "Where?" Azaga did not answer. Instead, he called for his subordinates to quickly take out a large amount of materials. Lei Xingfeng immediately understood. They were going to build a large secret door and mobilize the troops. He hurriedly said, "Pay attention to the defense." How could the outsiders allow them to build a secret door? This was simply asking for their lives. Once the enemy attacked, the people inside would come out and attack from the inside. No matter how crazy they were or how good they were at fighting, they would still be finished. At first, the outsiders did not understand. Their attention was focused on the outside. But when the framework of the secret door was built, the outsiders all went crazy. Attacking at all costs was their only choice. All the cultivators, except for those who were building the secret door, stood at the inner circle of the restriction. Everyone knew that if they could not stop the enemy, they would all die. Seeing that they were about to escape, if they died now, it would be too sullen. They began to fight for their lives. Azaga said, "A phone, we just need to drag it out for an hour. No matter what, we have a hold on." Lei Xingfeng cursed inwardly. He had no choice but to step forward. This was not the time to be humble. The battle quickly reached its climax. Thousands of people were charging at once, and there was an endless stream of them. Lei Xingfeng had no choice but to use his killing formations. Even so, there were still some high-ranking outsiders who managed to charge in. They were all Downlord patriarchs, while the others were all slain within his formations. At the same time, the army of cultivators also clashed with the army of outsiders. It was as if countless heavenly thunders were rolling down. Shouts, explosions, all kinds of flashes of light, and thick smoke rose up. No one knew how many people had fallen. The entire battlefield was in chaos. Lei Xingfeng did not care about anything else. He had to control the operation of the restriction and kill batch after batch of outsiders who entered the restriction. At this time, Lei Xingfeng did not have time to regret. He should have spent more materials to set up a restriction killing array that could last longer. He did not know how long this restriction killing array could last. The outsiders were like crazy. This time, they did not care about the casualties. This made Lei Xingfeng not dare to stop the operation of the restriction killing array. In just a short 20 minutes, half of the thunder crystals in the formation core had been consumed. And the worst part was that they couldn't replenish it. This was because this was a one-time use killing array. If they tried to forcibly replenish it, it might cause the killing array to collapse. If the killing array collapsed at this time, then they would all be finished. There was no one here who could resist so many outsiders. Wu Yang was also in the inner circle of the restriction, standing there and fighting with all his might. The Lai Ba was the same. No one dared to slack off, and no one dared to hold back their strength. They were all doing their best to kill the outsiders that rushed in. Azeka would occasionally pounce forward and kill a few powerful outsiders. He stood in the center of the restriction-killing array, supporting the surroundings at any time. If there was any instability, he would attack. The secret door was being set up. A few Dao Lord ancestors were setting it up as fast as they could. They were all components that had been refined long ago. As long as they set it up quickly, once it was activated, there would be endless reinforcements. Then they would win. Both sides were fighting for time. The battle was getting more and more intense. Everyone was going all out. Lei Xingfeng was so nervous that his forehead was covered in sweat. At this time, he could only pray that the restriction-killing array he set up was strong enough. Azeka took some time to say, "Don't be so fast. Our people can still hold on. We have to use it at the crucial moment." Lei Xingfeng heard this and could not help but scold himself for panicking. He agreed and immediately stopped the restriction-killing array. Immediately, the pressure on everyone increased. After holding on for a few minutes, Azeka yelled, "Start the killing array." Several places had been breached. Even with Azeka's support, they still could not hold on. Therefore, Lei Xingfeng immediately activated the killing array. Immediately, lightning bolts rained down and instantly wiped out a large number of outsiders. Lei Xingfeng used less than 30 seconds to activate and deactivate the killing array. Although he could not kill all the outsiders in the killing array, he killed at least half of them. This way, the pressure on everyone was greatly reduced. Lei Xingfeng also relaxed a little. Just this short period of time felt extremely long to him. Lei Xingfeng's eyes were sharp and his brain was extremely nimble. Every time he activated the killing array, it was at the crucial moment. This made Azeka very satisfied. The other Dao Lord Patriarchs were also full of praise. Every time they reached a critical moment, countless lightning bolts would fall from the killing array. Even if it was only for a few dozen seconds, it was enough for the Dao Lord Patriarchs to catch their breath and drink an antidote or healing medicine. This extremely short period of time was the time to save their lives. Everyone was exhausted. Even if Lei Xingfeng did not make a move, he still felt his body go soft. If they were to be so focused for a long time, they would definitely go crazy. As Lei Xingfeng did not use the killing array sparingly, he knew that he could still hold on for a while. This way, during the most dangerous moment, the killing array could still be used. He kept his eyes on the construction of the secret door. After half an hour, the Dao Lord Patriarchs had completed the construction of the secret door and were about to activate it. The halo dispersed. This was like an order. Therefore, the outsiders went completely berserk. They knew very well that once the cultivators came out of the secret door, they would be completely defeated. Azeka yelled, "The final moment! A foam! Activate it at full power, no matter the cost." Hearing this, Lei Xingfeng immediately activated the killing array to the maximum. The lightning bolts were like dense arrows that instantly lit up the entire ground. Chapter 586. Even if the forbidden killing formation was fully activated, the outsiders still rushed into the forbidden killing formation without a care. Even if there was violent lightning in front of them, they still rushed in madly. Even if they were immediately turned into ashes by the lightning, they still rushed in. This time, the number of casualties was increasing. At the same time, Lei Xingfeng also felt that things were not good. This was because under the full activation of the array, the large lightning crystals were being consumed rapidly. He kept turning back to look at the secret door. At this time, the secret door began to emit a faint light. Following that, a group of people walked out of the secret door. Azeka was overjoyed. He went forward to welcome the cultivator in the lead. This person had a threatening aura. Just by standing there, he made Lei Xingfeng feel suffocated. He immediately understood that this was an emperor-level expert. This person was definitely powerful. That person said, "Azeka, how is it? You've worked hard this time." Azeka said, "Lord Baida, Please bring people. Help to hold them back. Everyone is about to die. More and more people rushed out, quickly replacing the previous cultivators. However, they did not move. This was because in front of them was a world of lightning. Bida said in surprise, "Who set up this restriction? It's very powerful." "Oh, it's not bad. No wonder you could hold on for so long. It should be because of this restriction." Azaga laughed. "It's an unexpected surprise. They're the young fellow who is actually proficient in restrictions. The most valuable thing is that he had predicted the outcome and secretly set it up. I took the opportunity to use it. Haha, the outcome is like this. Originally, I thought that the supervising team would be wiped out. I didn't expect that with this restriction, at least half of my people would survive." Haha. Bida said, "Good, very good. This time, we will let the vertical tail men die." This was the first time Lei Xingfeng heard the name of the outsiders. They were called vertical tail men. He no longer cared about the restriction. After all, once it was fully activated, it would not stop until the large lightning crystals were used up. Therefore, his attention was focused on Bida. This fellow gave people the feeling that he was an extremely powerful expert. Very quickly, more than 2,000 people were sent out of the secret door. All of them were Dao monarch old ancestors. This kind of strength made Wuyong and Exine Feng's jaws drop. This vanguard group was abnormal. Everyone knew how powerful Dao monarch old ancestors were. For a small sect to have a Dao monarch old ancestor was already an incredible matter. But here, more than 2,000 of them came out casually. From this, one could see how strong the Mingzhe alliance was. Lei Xingfeng suddenly shouted, "The restriction is about to stop. The entire killing formation is about to collapse. Everyone, pay attention to the enemy." This time, the final explosion of the restriction lasted for a long time and was extremely powerful. It lasted for 3 minutes and still didn't end. Bida was secretly shocked. He had seen many restriction masters, but he had never seen a restriction master who could set up such a perverted restriction killing formation. Soon, the restriction circle was full of people. People were squeezing and squeezing. It was a very small place, but it was packed with people. Azika asked, "A phone, how long will it be until it ends?" "There are too many people." Lei Xingfeng said, "It will end at any time. Even I didn't expect it to be so long." As soon as Zhang Xian said those words, the seal abruptly came to a halt. In an instant, everyone's ears suddenly fell silent, as if all of the sounds in the world had disappeared. Once one got used to the rumbling of lightning, it would cause such a bizarre situation to occur. Bida said, "Kill. Attack. Attack." The new cultivators immediately attacked in all directions. The sharpness of their attacks was unimaginable. In an instant, the outsiders who were still in the restriction circle were killed. Even the Dao Lord Patriarchs of the outsiders were no exception. The people in the restriction circle seemed to have exploded. They rushed in all directions, but cultivators were still coming out of the secret door. Lei Xingfeng sat down. Although he didn't participate in the battle, he was more tired than if he had. Wu Yang and the others also sat on the ground. This battle made everyone feel like they had escaped from the hands of the Grim Reaper. Not only was it terrifying, but it was also very exciting. They were walking on a tightrope in the restriction circle. If they were careless, they would be doomed eternally. Azika's back was still straight. This kind of battle didn't affect him much. He had participated in countless battles and was already used to life and death. Bida commanded the newly arrived squads to launch repeated attacks against the outsiders. The assault squads formed by the Dao Lord Patriarchs sliced and diced apart the outsiders, and as more and more of them arrived, Bida was able to wipe out all of the nearby outsiders. The completion of the 3 major secret gates gave Bida even more manpower to slaughter the outsiders. Lei Xingfeng didn't even want to look. He lowered his head and slowly calmed himself down. No one wanted to speak. Everyone who stood guard was lying or sitting on the ground. Their eyes were listless. This battle had been full of twists and turns. Everyone was secretly glad that they had survived. No one came to manage them for now. Lei Xingfeng took out a piece of cooked meat and slowly tore it. At this moment, he felt extremely hungry. Wu Yang said, "Give me a piece." Lei Xingfeng gave him a piece. Wu Yang took a bite and couldn't help but look at Lei Xingfeng in surprise. This was a piece of astral beast meat. It was the best food to replenish one's strength and spirit. Dalieba also walked over and sat beside Lei Xingfeng. He said weakly, "Give me a piece too. I'm starving." Lei Xingfeng also gave him a piece. Dalieba took a bite and was also shocked. He was just about to speak when Lei Xingfeng put his finger to his mouth and said, "Eat, eat. Rest first." Dalieba knew what this was. He had eaten a bit of astral beast meat by chance and knew that this thing was definitely good for recovery. He ate the astral beast meat in his hand and then took out his dry rations. The astral beast meat's effect was comparable to medicine. It wasn't so extravagant as to use it to fill one's stomach. Of course, Lei Xingfeng had done this before. He used astral beast meat to make delicious food and ate it like normal food. He wasted a lot of astral beast meat. Azago was beside the 4 secret doors. He was responsible for the safety of these 4 doors. As the cultivators poured out of the doors, this place became safer. The cultivators on the outside pressed in while the cultivators on the inside attacked outwards. The entire outer race army was shaken. They started to break out of the encirclement towards the mountains. The entire battlefield was in chaos. However, this had nothing to do with Lei Xingfeng and the others. After the secret doors opened, their mission was considered complete. When Lei Xingfeng and the others returned to the main camp through the secret doors, the outer race army had completely retreated. This time, the outer race army had suffered heavy casualties. Actually, the same went for the cultivators. However, the Mingzhe alliance controlled a lot of continents and had a lot of manpower. Not only were they strong, but they also had more people than the outer race army. It was only natural that they would win. Lei Xingfeng returned to the main camp. Everyone had a 3-day break. They all found a place to sleep. They slept for 3 days. On the 3rd day, Lei Xingfeng woke up. The houses in the main camp were all wooden houses. They were very simple and crude. The rooms were very small and could only fit a few people. There was nothing else in the room. He could even smell the smell of wood. After sitting in the room for a while, Lei Xingfeng went to Wu Yang's room next door. Wu Yang had already woken up. He even secretly went back to the mirror realm. When he saw Lei Xingfeng come in, he smiled and said, "A phone. Have you slept enough?" Lei Xingfeng wiped his face and rubbed it hard. He said, "Yes, I slept enough. This time, I'm tired." Wu Yang smiled and said, "You also gain a lot." I went back and also went to the mines. They have already dug under another mine." Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but smile and said, "This time, we are rich." Wu Yang said, "I think someone will invite you to join the Mingzhe alliance soon. In the future, we will have to do things separately." Fortunately, with the mirror realm, we can contact each other at any time. What do you plan to do? Xi and Feng remained silent for a while before speaking. No matter what, we should keep a low profile and not attract the attention of others, especially the Mingzhe alliance. If they find out about our little actions, then we'll be in trouble. We've only seen the tip of the iceberg of the Mingzhe alliance's strength. Their strength is too great compared to them. We're not even ants. We should try our best to avoid conflict with the Mingzhe alliance. This is very important to us. Wu Yang nodded and said, "Yes, we are not even ants. I don't even know how many Dao Lord old ancestors they have. It's too scary." The Bright Marsh Alliance could casually send out thousands of Dao Lord Patriarchs, but Wushang's secret sect only had one Dao Lord Patriarch, Wushang. The difference was too great. Lei Xingfeng said, "There are too many sects gathered together, and they occupy so many continents. The control and alliance of these sects are indeed extraordinary. We can't fight back, but we can still rely on them and earn some benefits." The two had the same idea. They wanted to suck the blood of the Mingzhe alliance. Of course, they had to do it secretly and use this to strengthen their secret sect. Even if they couldn't compete with the Mingzhe alliance in the future, they would still be able to survive in the outer realm. According to Lei Xingfeng's speculation, there weren't many sects that had passed through the Heavenly Bridge. There might be some extremely powerful sects that were struggling at death's door. However, he didn't have much confidence in these sections. The local cultivators were too powerful. Even if the secret sect had people that had advanced to the monarch realm, they wouldn't be able to resist a force like the Ming-Zhe alliance. According to Wu Yang's speculation, Lei Xingfeng would enter the Ming-Zhe alliance soon. As expected, in less than 2 days, Lei Xingfeng was called away. Before he left, Lei Xingfeng gestured. Wu Yang understood that Lei Xingfeng wanted him to keep in contact with Lei Xingfeng. At this point, Lei Xingfeng had to fight alone. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.